Welcome to the Big Week in Gaming podcast. And yes, it's been a big week in gaming. I'm integot for episode 38 on Sunday, the 4th of April 2021. As always, I'm joined by the official P3 himself nominated and approved Xbox Hall of Famer and #1 challenger to the mantle of the greatest Xbox RPG player in the world, Swinny.
Hello.
And the game-loving, grind-hating, $1 coffee drinking gamer, anti-gamer, and interrupter-in-chief extraordinaire, Mike.
Hello.
In this week's show, we'll be discussing Sony's shutting down of the PS3, PSP, and Vita stores, updates on the next-gen Cyberpunk 2077, Witcher 3, and CDPR future plans, and we take our look at the second Game of Some Other Year nominee, Super Mario 3D Land. As for the shameless shilling, if you want to join in the conversation, reach out to us at bigwigpod@gmail.com or on Twitter on bigwigpod.
We have children and pets that need to be taken care of.
It looks like there's no corrections or updates this week.
No, but an apology from me. So if anybody doesn't know, I usually put in those notes about what we're discussing each week. And it went Next Gen Witcher 3 Cyberpunk, and then I swapped it around and didn't move the Next Gen. But maybe we'll talk about Next Gen Cyberpunk. We'll see.
Well, no, they did announce that as well. So it's still apt.
Uh-huh.
And there's lots to talk about. It's a very CDPR focused episode, fortunately.
It's a big week in CDPR.
Yes. Or actually, as they pronounce it, it's CD. What is it?
No, it's not CD. It's
CD
Projekt.
Yeah. No, they don't even really announce the project bit. Anyway, Mike, what have you been playing this week?
CD Projekt. Not a lot.
Not a lot?
I am sticking to my New Year's resolutions. Thank you very much.
My quarterly review worked.
It absolutely worked. What rating am I getting? Exceeds expectations.
It's a 2x2. No. You're in the cyberpunk zone. You're mostly in the cyberpunk zone with me.
Wait, that's not a good zone to be in.
No.
Even with all the patches.
Yes.
Okay. No, so I played a bit of a certain game that we're going to be talking about today, which is Mario Land.
Yeah.
And I played the spiritual successor, which is Mario World.
Well, but what other game did you review?
And I may have also... I forgot about that.
I didn't play much, but I did
a little gem.
I did an official Metacritic review.
That's right. It did appear on Metacritic, didn't it? And I played Narita Boy.
Beautiful.
So I'll be talking about that later in this episode.
Yeah. So we couldn't talk about that last week, unfortunately.
We weren't allowed, no. So. Although you did kind of let something slip.
No, don't say that.
But it wasn't really. It wasn't a slip. It was like, if people had one
Correction,
of those big...
I did not do that.
He didn't do that. If people had a really big chart with our photos and strings attached to all these things and all sorts of they may have maybe connected certain... I'm kidding.
Charlie,
so
nothing was revealed. It was a secret till now.
After you connect everything, it ends up being the fact that Integot's the Zodiac Killer. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah.
You know how obsessed about the Zodiac Killer I am? I've read thousands of pages of material on the Zodiac Killer. I'm obsessed about it. I was so excited when they broke the cipher. They had for the first time in 50, 60 years. It was crazy.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I bet you would have tried to break it yourself.
I was.
Yeah.
I was. And I think the way I was doing it was the right path. It was just spitting out millions of iterations via computer. Maybe I'll go next because I had pretty light week as well. So been playing a stack of LA Noire. So probably about 2/3 through that game. I think that's the next one up in 2 weeks' time, I think. For the Game of Some Other Year.
That is correct.
So I think I'll finish that in the next couple of days over the Easter long weekend. Or what am I saying? We're right in the midst of the Easter long weekend. It's Sunday today. And then also not heaps, but I've got my teeth sunk into Monster Hunter Rise, which we will, get to because we do have a news item about that. So maybe I'll save my thoughts there. And that's about it, really. I'm just really trying to bang out those two games. And I actually played a little bit of Mario 35, given that Nintendo killed Mario during the week. So thought that'd be apt. How about you, Swinny? What have you been up to?
So I've also had a bit of a light week, but I guess a light week for me is still in comparison to you guys.
20 hours of games.
So yeah, as with all of been playing Super Mario 3D Land to chat about it today. Also have played a bit of Outer Worlds Murder on Eridanos, the DLC murder mystery, and so far it's pretty cool. I'm probably only an hour into that, so pretty early on. Played through Nier Automata, which was really, really fun. But
from start to finish, by the way?
No.
Okay. I was about to say, because you said that in the offline chat, and I was like, did you like beat that all the way through? That's insane.
So I played parts of it, but I got to try that awesome cheat code.
Oh, you did do it?
Yeah.
Damn,
so
that's cool, man.
So it's actually really, really neat, but you still actually have to complete some parts of the game, and you still have to be a high enough level to be able to beat like certain parts of the game. To say any more would be a spoiler.
Yeah.
But I will say, so basically on top of using that, combined with about 2 to 3 hours of just grinding, just to get powerful enough, and then combined with just some strategic usage of the in-game achievement shop, it's actually a really, really funny way to complete a game. So it took me probably about 4.5 hours, maybe, in comparison to maybe 25 it would have taken to do it normally.
Okay.
So, yeah. And I've already done the Xbox One version, so I've experienced that game. That is not a way to play that game for the first time in any way. But considering I was just like, I just want to complete this. It's a notch on my goals, but it's not the not one I'm most proud of. What I'm actually going to do is, there's a few games that are kind of in that bucket. So depending how I'm traveling later in the year, I may say, hey, some of these were a bit of a cheap win. So maybe I'll have to do something about that.
Cheap win for the Swin.
But cheap win for the Swin. The game I've played the most though this week is Assassin's Creed Pirates, which I'm not going to get into that game too much because it's a mobile game, but then I'm playing the Windows version. Is
it better than Origins?
No,
or
Odyssey.
Odyssey?
Well,
sorry, I nearly choked before, so I don't know what I sound like now.
The fact that I didn't even want to like include these kind of games on my tier list just goes to show what my thoughts about them are.
Wait, is that because it's well above the tier list?
Don't you recall every tier of the tier list and every game's placement? These were right at the bottom.
Look, honestly, it's not that bad, but it's just a grind. Like I'm currently, life got in the way. Unfortunately, I was rushing 5 minutes before this podcast to see if I could unlock the last achievement.
That's why you were late. You were late to the start of the recording.
No, that's got nothing to do with it. The issue for me, not the issue, but like there's basically like a 5-hour grind at the end of that game to destroy 1,000 ships.
Whoa.
And you don't know how far you are. And I'm pretty certain, like, it literally could be my next ship. Like, there's part of me that just wants to load it up while we're talking and complete the goal on air.
That's crazy.
Complete the goal on air.
Wow.
And be like, hey, I completed my resolution. But no, I'm not going to do that.
Wait, 1,000 ships in 5 hours? That's not bad.
Well, look, you knock out about 250 through completing everything else, so there's about 750. Okay. So basically, 3/4 of it you've just got to sit there grinding. So it's not fun. But hey, once I'm done with that, then I've only got the good stuff in the future to play. So
being number one in the world doesn't always
number one challenger.
Having fun.
There's only 10 other people that have done this because The thing is, though, because there's games included on there that are on Windows phones, so there's a lot of people, and not only that, but you can't buy them anymore.
And have you done them?
Yeah. So, well, this game I'm doing, Assassin's Creed Pirates, is on Windows. It was a Windows 8 app, so it's on the Windows Store, but it's been delisted.
Oh my god!
So there's a lot of people. If someone wanted to complete the whole series now, and they don't already have that game, you can't do it.
Yeah.
So.
Can you buy accounts on eBay or something?
I'm sure there's some backwater way to do it. But yeah. Anyway, that's been my week.
I have to say, like, I do find a perverse joy in reading through your Assassin's Creed tier list and all the people yelling at you. Mostly, like, probably one nice message for every 10 bad ones. But that's normally like a tier list, right?
It's basically Odyssey. I wonder if Odyssey was an S tier, you might have more people complaining about the fact that Assassin's Creed 2 is so low. Like, we have one person points that out, but hey, look,
Personal opinion.
The dislikes are catching up to the likes.
They
so
are. The hate is growing.
At some point, it will overtake if the current course is anything to go by. But then YouTube might get rid of them, so maybe
Exactly.
we'll get rid of them before.
That's true. You know what? It's a race right now. It's a race for when the new UI update goes live versus the hate for your video.
But you know what they're going to do? I reckon they're just going to like minus the dislikes off the current like count. So it might drop down to like 1 or 0 likes.
No.
It'd be interesting if they did. I don't think they'll do that.
I've already seen
They'll
what it
just
looks
hide
like.
it.
What they show
okay.
is they just show you the likes. They have the thumb down icon, but they don't show you how many dislikes there are.
Okay.
So you can dislike a video, but the public doesn't know how many dislikes you have. I reckon you'll know how many dislikes. Like we'll be able to tell,
Oh, for sure.
but a normal punter won't. That's
And
my understanding.
And you will let the
I will.
audience know.
Oh, I will. It will be the name of the show.
Just wait until you do a tier list
Yeah.
on a highly divisive series.
Well, yeah, okay. Because I was saying to you guys, and I got to wait until I go to Japan or Singapore again.
yeah.
But I'm gonna do
For?
a tier list for Mario Kart because I want to do
Ooh,
every
okay.
Mario Kart game, and I'm talking about the arcade games and the VR arcade game. So I want to
Super
do it
Nintendo
right.
one was the best one though, so
I do
Might as
love
well
the
just-
Super Nintendo one.
it's probably the best one.
But
I'm
that-
not even kidding. I think it was the most fun I had in any of
I
them.
don't think it's going to be as divisive that one. I think
No,
I don't
probably
think
not,
it's going to
no.
be as divisive.
But also, there's not are there as many? I mean, the version on Switch is the same version as on Wii.
It's probably like 13 games in the series ballpark.
that
off the top of
many
my head.
already?
Off the top of my
Wow.
head.
I'm looking forward to this. And all the that thing.
Divisive,
where people-
divisive, either way.
Where people will hate you.
I
but some people will
can't
love
think
you.
of a tier list that would be controversial, Swinny, that I could do for a series I'm passionate about.
well, yeah,
Zelda.
maybe. Yeah, but Zelda things. If you put Breath of the Wild #1, most people probably
He
gonna
will.
like that. So if
course
I
he
did
will.
that tier list, people would hate me, just like the
Yeah,
hate my
oh,
Assassin's
God.
Creed list.
Jesus Christ, can you do a Zelda tier list? That would be gold. That would be awesome. Let's do that. Because I think your Mario tier list is going to be fair enough. Like, there's games I probably don't 100% agree with you. But based on what you've said so far, I'm like, okay, it's going to be normal. But your Zelda one, man, that's going to... At least you're not, like, saying Skyward Sword should be #1. But outside of that, you're going to blow people up.
Maybe he will say
Oh, it's
that.
just. I think it's just Breath of the Wild. That's the one.
No, there's a few games you've said, and I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, some of the opinions you have on it. It shocked me. That would actually be pretty good. Have you done most of the Zelda games?
I've played them all except now we're not talking like the CDI ones or anything.
Yeah, look, on that one, I'll give it a pass. Like, I think that's
Yeah.
beyond the pale. But
I think
I'm talking
the
about
only-
Oracles.
Yeah. I think the only game I haven't completed is Breath of the Wild.
I think the only one that I could think of.
And if you count the remake of Link's Awakening, I haven't played that yet.
Yeah, I can't believe I played Breath of the Wild more than you have. That blows me away.
Oh, look, I played like about 8 hours of Breath of the Wild. So I don't know if you played more than that.
yeah. I got to the castle at the end.
Oh, okay, fair
To
enough.
defend Swinny a little bit on Breath of the Wild, I can kind of understand the frustration to a degree. I know this doesn't change you liking the game or not, but I can understand the frustration. Swinny actually had a Wii U, and you were looking forward to the game, and then they kind of delayed the game and changed the game and launched it simultaneously on the Switch. So it's kind of a bit... I think if I went through that, I would have been a bit annoyed, to be honest.
Look, the part of it as well is the fact that I just come off The Witcher 3, and to go into another open world game, you can't help but kind of be in that zone. And
Yeah.
they're obviously very different games, but
Well, one's an
Like,
RPG, one's
still-
not. It's pretty
Yeah,
bloody
but-
different.
no, but they're very different. But I'm saying they're still both open world games, and I think that you can't help but start to make comparisons about how much fun you're having when you're in that
Yes.
open world. So the reason why I wouldn't do a Zelda tier list, I wouldn't do one until I'd actually play through Breath of the Wild, which I do plan on doing. I mean, I spent $160 on a game.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
you just saw it
total.
Total.
So you love it more than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only game I need to finish from memory is Zelda 2. And I really don't like that game.
So, okay, so you said, like, I played Fire into Zelda 2, but I'd never completed it. So if you're saying you have to complete it, then I'd have to complete it. But honestly, I don't think I'd want to complete Zelda 2. Not because I don't hate it, just because I just feel like I know enough about that game to be able to judge it. If that makes sense.
Fair enough. I don't know. I feel like if you're gonna do a tier list, I don't know. I feel like you need to finish the games, but that's just me. I'm not psycho. So.
No, you
I
do.
mean,
You
that'd be the preferred situation, of course.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we jump into our first news article, our headliner for the show. So it does appear that the rumors were right. So Sony is shutting down the PS3, PSP, and Vita stores. So this was originally reported by The Gamer. Mixed reports. People kind of thought it was rumor. They have got a lot of things wrong in the past, but they've 100% got this right, including that there was going to be an announcement by Sony by the end of March. And I was almost about to gloat about them being wrong, and then Sony came down with the announcement. So PS3 and PSP stores are going to close on the 2nd of July, 2021, and the Vita store is going to close on the 27th of August, 2021. In a nutshell, essentially, once those shutdown dates occur, you can no longer purchase games, purchase DLC, purchase any media, but you are able to download from those stores post those shutdown dates. Now, whether that will remain active forever is not confirmed. They don't really go into that, but they just say that you are able to re-download things. And also, we should also point out that any codes that have been issued previously are still able to be redeemed. So essentially, it's almost like as if you've had it in your library. Other key things to probably call out, cross-buy games are still valid, but, a lot of people say this works a bit like it's a little bit defective. So the advice is make sure it's working on your Vita or your PS3 because it applies to both. Like get them up and running and then transfer them across to PS4 if you want to continue them, because in the past they have not worked that well. So it's probably a smart idea to do that now. And then finally, if you have any PSN wallet funds, you can move them across to PS4, PS5. I want to sort of get your thoughts on it. But I'm actually a little bit shocked about the Vita one, just because, I know with Vita, people are still literally making games for the Vita. So there's, like a studio, Lulumo Games, they're currently making a game, and they just got a dev kit for the Vita like a month ago.
Wow.
And, they asked the Sony rep, hey, what's going on with this? Like, is this actually real? And they said nothing. And then, this announcement happened. So they had to cancel their Vita version of that game. So I don't know. It was just very surprising to me that it's happening.
If they knew that they had developers that were actively developing games, which they may not know all the time, but if you've just asked, as you said, just been given a dev kit, like you should know. Like I think Sony in most situations would probably have dealt with that situation better, but it just seems like that one maybe just slipped under their watch, but
you wonder how they
compartmentalize.
You wonder how they split the compartments up in Sony, whether the left end is talking to the right about it properly. So they may have sent the dev kit not knowing that the actual PSN version of it or the store version will be completely shut.
Well, so no, but the issue, just to not correct, but so with the PS Vita, so it's a cartridge based system, as opposed to the PSP, which was like a disc based system, but it was suspended in a plastic shell. With the PS Vita, they'd actually stopped producing the physical carts years ago, like a couple of years ago. So there was a stock of physical carts left, and they were basically negotiating with devs. Oh, you can have 10,000 carts, you can have 5,000 carts, all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
So it was very strange the way that they closed it out, because only Sony could produce the carts. And
it was proprietary, wasn't it?
Yeah, so you with anything, you either have the physical version or you have the digital, or both. So, the physical avenue has been closed for a while for most people. So they're still going, okay, well, we can release the game digitally at least. And that's why they got the dev kit. And they definitely didn't know, the people who were, in developer relations. Like, they wouldn't have sent it out. If I was in that job, I'd say, we're trying to source another dev kit. Just give us some time. You know what I mean? Just to buy time. And then the announcement happens and it's like, okay, well, I guess you don't need that anymore. ... Right? And it's not that old, the PS Vita. Like, it actually really shocks me.
It's like 9 years, I think, or so.
Yeah, it's 10. Yeah, so it's like, well, I guess it released in Japan really late in 2011. So
It doesn't feel that old, though. You know what I mean? Like, it still feels
No.
relatively recent as a thing that I played
it's-
with and held. And
In saying that, it does feel like a while since it was really supported at all.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah,
So,
Like in terms of their commercial support, Sony gave up on it years ago. Years and years ago. You know, like the fact that they stopped producing the actual cartridges. I think their last commercial release was years and years ago. And from Sony's perspective, it was a complete failure commercially.
that's interesting. Do you think they'll, now that the Switch has been such a success, they'll try to reignite a portable sometime soon?
Nah, no way.
no.
Nah.
Shame.
This we'll get to the PS3 in a second because I think that's probably the one that's going to have the biggest impact. But the thing that really sucks is the PSP Go, because that's a digital only handheld. So
Is it the flippy one? That's a flippy one, isn't it? I should know this because I'm supposed to be the Sony shell.
No,
But
it's
basically-
the slide out.
The slide out, yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
so like the only way outside of of modding the thing is of getting games on there is digitally. So you have to now did you say the dates when they're shutting down?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got till 2nd of July to at least make purchases
That's
you want.
aggressive,
But past,
man. That's
past
aggressive.
that point, past that
3 months,
point,
yeah.
PSP Go, if unless you want to mod it, that's literally the last games you can play on that thing.
Yeah, but you know the thing is, dude, like with the PSP, man, it came out like 15 years ago. Like at least with that, I can understand. Like that to me, I'm never actually a big fan of them shutting down the digital stores for these consoles. Because I think it just plays into the hands of people who want to retain physical if they start to close down digital stores, because it does get people going, oh, should I buy it digitally? Because maybe I'll never be able to download it again in the future. But yeah, with PS Vita, I just can't get over it. It feels like an active console to me to some degree. I know it's kind of like in its last bit of life, but normally you'd think, yeah, and you give it 5 years. You know, like compared to what they've done with PSP, they've let that store be open since, mid 2000s, and now they're killing the Vita one, and it's not even 10 years old. So
but even with the PSP, like I have Final Fantasy VII remake.
I was going to say, wow, on PSP.
Remaster, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Final Fantasy VII version of it on PSP.
Yeah.
And I played that for quite a bit on the PSP, and that was a digital copy. So it'd be, I mean, I guess there's other avenues now, but unless you have a Switch or something, that was probably the best way to play the game. Given, perfect screen for it, graphics weren't being updated or anything like that. It felt really good on that console.
I just think it's going to absolutely, like both of these handhelds had an insanely huge modding scene. So PSP kind of got not killed. That's the wrong way to say it, but if you look at the attach rate of the PSP compared to other handhelds, it doesn't make any sense. Like the amount of software they sold on that versus the amount of hardware. So PSP was a pretty big success. It was about 80 million PSPs sold from memory. And the software sales didn't really match the amount of consoles. And the only way it made sense is if you understood that people hacked the system. So they bought the retail unit and then just hacked it and put whatever games on there for free, which was really common with the PSP. I think it was one of the most pirated systems that I knew about. But yeah, the PS Vita, like I just, it's kind of like you have to say it's officially dead now. But if you put it in the context of PlayStation didn't really have a failure until the PS Vita. You go through PS1, 2, 3, 4, and the PSP. The worst seller was a PSP, and that was 80 million. So then you go to like the PS Vita. I think they haven't even announced how many they've sold, but people think it's kind of in the order of about 15 million. So kind of the same as the Wii U, which is pretty bad numbers for a handheld. So, and you wanted to move on to PS3, Swinny?
Yeah, look, this absolutely sucks. There's no way around it. Now, there must be some technical, like this whole decision, there must be some reason for them to do it, right? That makes
I've
sense
got a theory, but you're gone.
Yeah. Look, I'm not gonna come up with theory. I'm just saying that, look, because outside of that, to me, this is just it's a horrible decision. it's kind of, I saw an article early today that was very, look, it was very over the top, but still, it basically said, within the same couple of weeks, you've got Nintendo like removing digital versions of like Mario All Stars and Fire Emblem,
right,
yeah.
and then you've got PlayStation shutting down these digital stores. They're like, it's like suddenly like just it's like these companies don't care about old games anymore.
Well, they don't. Sony doesn't.
No, yeah, and like we've heard Jack Ryan talk before about looking at like older PlayStation games, just go, why would anyone want to play that?
I've got the quote quickly.
Yeah.
So he was chatting to Time. So this is what he said. He goes, when we've dabbled with backwards compatibility, I can say it's one of those features that's much requested but not actually used much. That, and I was at a Gran Turismo event recently where they had PS1, 2, 3, 4 games, and the PS1 and PS2 games, they looked ancient. Like, why would anyone want to play this? I was like, this guy, and by the way, so just for people to understand the context, it's kind of interesting. Sony is a Japanese company, but essentially PlayStation is run by Americans now. So they had this battle, Sony of like California essentially, but Sony USA and Sony Japan, and Sony USA won. And that's why you've seen Fallout where, we covered it a few weeks ago with the Tokyo arm of like Sony's game studio basically closing down for the most part and just leaving Team Wasabi who do Astrobot. It's really because, the US branch won and now runs Sony. So Jim Ryan is now the head of Sony Interactive Entertainment, which has PlayStation underneath it. So this is kind of his view of the world. So from that perspective, it kind of doesn't surprise me to a degree, but it's very sad. It's very sad, especially with a PS3, Swinny, right? And it's funny because you're about to get a PS3, right? Like you're trying to hunt one down.
Yeah, but that, I'm not so concerned about that because a lot of the games that I want, I know are generally all physical releases. But it's just like Xbox. There's a lot of digital-only games on PS3 that unless they're being found re-release or they're on PC, whatever, like some of that stuff's just going to be lost forever. From a game preservation standpoint, it absolutely sucks.
Yeah, and like, people get this wrong with the PS3. PS3 had a very different architecture compared to the current gen and last gen of consoles, PS4, PS5, and Xbox One and Xbox Series X. And because of that, it's very difficult actually to emulate PS3 games to a standard that people would, consider acceptable. So there's a lot of games on PS3 still to this day that you really can only play them on a PS3, including digital games. So they are now like fully blocking off these games once the store goes offline. And I think, again, the timelines are so aggressive. The 2nd of July, it's like 3 months. Is it 3 months, 4 months away compared to when the podcast goes up? It's kind of nuts. And it shows that Jim Ryan really doesn't care about backwards compatibility or old legacy games.
If there's one thing that I'll give them is that at least they have included the re-download feature.
Yeah, that's true.
That's one thing. That's one thing that they've done way better than when Nintendo's done this. Which is, I still cannot believe that just is the case. Like, if it wasn't the fact that like a lot of
the Wii store, right?
The Wii store, the Nintendo DSi, even the Wii U and 3DS in some countries, not a lot of not all the countries, but they don't have the ability to re-download games they've purchased. It's wild.
How is that even? I mean, how does that work from a legal perspective? If you sell someone a product like that, but then you're unable to get it again,
it's never been challenged, but legally, even it's kind of weird. But when you buy a physical game, you're not buying a physical game. You're not buying a copy of that game. You're buying a license.
Yes.
To play that game, as long as they want you to have, they can. Want. Yeah. Any choice that they want.
That's kind of crazy.
Again, has never been challenged in court, court in the world yet.
But it's only really recently where that's a thing. As in the past, you may have only had a license for the original Fallout, but you had the physical disc. You could install it on a machine. You could play it. No one really cared. Off you go, kind of thing. Whereas now you just completely lose access to something you paid for.
Yeah. And I mean,
interesting.
Thankfully, that's not the case in this situation, or
no,
at least
definitely not
at
least for now.
But you look at your situation, Swinny. You want to pick up a PS3. This is not even joking for the audience or the anything. Like, you legitimately want to pick up a PS3, get through the back catalog games, and you're going to be hampered, man, because there's a lot of games on there that you won't be able to get in Australia that easily. So, you know what's going to happen, Swinny? You're going to end up coming to me and modding the PS3. And I'm going to say, you finally come into my dark clutches. Because it might be the only way you can play some of these games. Yeah, but it's I don't know. It's really frustrating. It's very strange. I can't get over the Vita one. Like, I get that it was like a very failed console for Sony, but I feel like that just doesn't give me confidence in Sony. It's a bit of a Google move. Although, let's be real, they would have killed it years and years ago. But yeah, it's a bit of a dark one. And we've done a really great job structuring the videos because our second item is about Analogue Pocket, which has been now delayed until October 2021. So Analogue Pocket was intended to be distributed and sent out to folks who pre-ordered. Lucky enough to pre-order. So like, I did get a pre-order for the Analogue Pocket. It was meant to be shipped out in May. And in April, so just this week, they actually announced to everyone. So I did get an email from them directly saying, you know, in sort of summary, due to sudden and severe electrical component shortages, as well as logistical issues leading to a domino effect of challenges for nearly everyone in the industry, they've taken the decision to delay the console until to October 2021.
Bummer.
This is also in line with the Analog Day, which is like mid-October, where they've pretty much year on year announced their new product. So it's going to be quite weird if they announce another new product whilst the product they announced years ago is still not even shipped yet.
Yeah, surely they won't do that.
Yeah, I think they might skip it this year, to be honest. Yeah. They have said to people they will offer a full refund. They actually always offer a full refund. If you want to get your pre-order money back, they'll always allow you to get it back. The one thing I wanted to call out is they put in 2 support articles. They didn't call out the articles directly. So they didn't say this is due to X or Y. They did call out the severe electrical component shortage. But the one that I thought was interesting, and I want to get your thoughts first, is just on the Suez Canal. And they pointed to the fact that that's been blocked as one of their issues. Like, Mike, like, do you sort of think that's true, or?
Well, where do they make these things? Because I mean, I'd assume a lot of these chips would be coming from Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the assembly?
China.
So the Analog Pockets are assembled in China as well?
Yes. So they have an office in Hong Kong. They have a factory in China.
Yeah,
and they're in Seattle. They're based in Seattle.
What's the canal got to do with any of that then?
Exactly.
Yeah. And they're based in Seattle. That makes no sense.
Are there no base materials that would potentially get shipped to Asia, or would it all just be in Asia?
But also, don't forget, the Suez Canal thing is like the last couple of weeks, right? And with manufacturing, you can't manufacture something as sophisticated than this in a few days or a few weeks. These take months to be on a manufacturing line. QA can take weeks for these kind of products.
All I know about that whole situation was that it created some of the best memes in ages. It was awesome. I feel sorry for obviously anyone, like, you know, if there were animals on some of those ships that were backed up and things. There's obviously a lot of loss financially and from that side of things as well. But other than that, it was very funny few days from a meme standpoint.
I like how your cold heart, you know, like this is actually this will lead to inflation for everyone, like unnecessarily inflation.
At least I acknowledged it.
Yeah, true.
But hey, inflation, dead animals, whatever. We got memes.
We got memes, as if there's never memes anyway about some other bullshit. So I don't know, like it's kind of weird. I don't know how to think about this because for me, I actually don't like how they're linking it to the Suez Canal stuff because I just think it's bullshit. But, you know, I'm a backer of this product. Like, I was looking forward to it coming out and playing.
Yeah, I want one now.
Well, yeah, it's really hard to order these things.
But I'm not indirectly supporting the death of animals.
You know who would really want one right now, or when it comes out, is Swinny. You know why?
Why?
Because I found out a couple of days ago my Game Boy's dead. It doesn't work anymore.
Oh, shit. So now you want one as well.
Obviously.
So I and I'm like, maybe someone could repair it, but
Oh, well, I feel like
it
they're
just won't-
repairable products.
it just won't. Like, I've heard Game Boys surviving like
Virus.
bombs or
You're
like
about to say
bombing
atomic
and-
bomb. You
not
idiot.
atomic bomb.
You're
No,
about to say that.
but
You
bombs,
idiot.
but bombs. I said
no,
I stopped
I think-
before I said atomic.
I think it was house fires and stuff.
No,
but
no,
yeah,
no. I think
okay.
you're thinking because they actually, someone took a Game Boy to the Iraqi war in the 90s,
yeah.
and it was involved in an explosion, and it was like partly destroyed, but it could still turn on and play games.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, but it just won't. Like I tried to clean all the like battery terminal stuff because it was a bit crusted over because there was batteries in there and things. But I'm like, man, it just won't work.
Almost
I reckon
certainly.
he could fix it.
I had Donkey Kong Land 3 in there. I'm like, oh, maybe it still has my time trial.
I think you lent me that game. It'd probably be a capacitor issue on your Game Boy.
Yeah. You can replace those.
But you can order one of these in 2023.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I joke about that, but that would actually probably be true. Yeah, look, like, I don't know, maybe I'm very patient. I'm not that too fussed about this. I really am a big believer in Analogue and what they do. And this year's been insane. Like, if you see, like with the iPhone last year, it got delayed by 2 months. And I mean, we're talking about $1 trillion company with their market power, and they still couldn't get enough chips. So I think everyone's really struggling in that space. And the other thing that Swinny is very excited about is that the Super NT will have another pre-order for this month. So you'd want to order one.
I got a question
Please
with
let
that.
me know when.
So the DAC,
Yep.
that's only required. That's only something if you want to feed it back into a CRT. Is that right?
Yeah, analog device, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I wouldn't need that. I just need the NT. Okay.
No.
Cool.
Yeah, if you look, the thing is with the analog, because, you probably want to ask, wait a second, you've got the Super NT, and then you turn it into with the DAC, like, why are you just not using a Super Nintendo at that point in time? But you can feed out like RGB signals. You can do heaps of other stuff that you want to do with it. So yeah, you don't need the DAC.
Well, also, my Super Nintendo is in pretty bad state. I don't even know if it's operational anymore. Someone borrowed it from me, and now I look at it, and I don't even want to display it because I'm just like, this thing just looks so sickly.
Oh, okay.
I'll take a photo
Borrowed
and
it.
send it to you.
Did their name start with Matt and end with Thew?
So, no.
Okay.
No.
Someone else.
I'll explain
Someone else.
post-show.
Okay, cool. Okay.
So this is one thing that does annoy me with analog. So they've said that the Super NT, and mostly because we're in Australia, the Super NT pre-order this month, and then the DAC and the Mega SG. So the for us the Mega Drive clone, but for the States the Genesis clone is actually going on pre-order shortly after. So probably the next month. But the problem is when you pre-order it, you pay for it. So just to warn you, Swinny, it's not like you're putting money down. You're paying for it,
Yeah, I'm cool
right?
with that.
It's fine.
But the problem is if you wanted a DAC, you have to pay for the shipping individually. So you can't go, hey guys, I'm happy to wait. Get the Super NT, get the DAC, and then put it together and ship it to me.
Okay, yeah.
It's individual shipping, and it's like $90 Australian shipping.
Whoa.
It's insane.
And
It's
how much is
disgusting.
the device?
So the
much is the
Super
Super
NT is like 189 US from memory.
Okay,
Let me just
right.
double check that. So whatever that works out to be. But then it's going to be like,
No, $90. Wow.
like another $80 when I'd say.
Well, if you're
for
in
shipping.
the S end of the world, what do you expect?
That is sick, man. I got the exact right number. 189.99. That's
Damn.
You are
scary.
sick. You are
But
sick.
I do love Analog, man. I love their stuff. Like, you're gonna like it. So yeah, it's been delayed to October 21. I think they're also probably buffering the fact that they probably could do it earlier, but they don't want to announce another delay, like another company that we'll talk about shortly. All right, for news item number 3, Monster Hunter Rise. It's absolutely destroying it in sales.
It's rising up the game charts, you may say.
Yes, it is. So the Switch exclusive has sold 4 million units in the first weekend, which,
Not
like,
bad.
interestingly though, with Monster Hunter World, which was, probably for a long time the first Monster Hunter game to be console exclusive, as it's not a remake, it's just its own thing, sold 5 million units. That was on PS4 and the Xbox One, and that sold those 5 million units in 3 days. But at the time that the game came out, there probably was like about maybe 80, 90 million PS3, PS4s and Xbox Ones out there in the wild. So kind of a comparable number to the amount of Switches out there. So Whether this game will actually outsell Monster Hunter World, probably not, based on the trajectory at the moment. Although a lot of Switch games do have a very long tail, so it still could actually happen.
I mean, Monster Hunter World had
think
the huge advantage of being the first big next gen Monster Hunter console game. You know,
For a while, right?
For a long time, yeah,
Yeah.
because the series has essentially been, you know, on handhelds and things for a while.
Yeah.
So, and not only that, but it got the big E3 stage buzz. You know, Monster Hunter Rise had a lot of buzz, but World was, you know, everyone was talking about World when it came out.
Yeah, and also the fact that World kind of relatively just came out. So it came out in 2018. This is coming out 3 years later.
That old, yeah.
Yeah, it's only 3 years.
I played
So
it recently.
I think that does have a factor in it as well. Because to your point, Swinny, around just, hey, it hasn't really been on a console as its first. They've had other games that have come on console, but they're almost like remakes of the handheld version of it. So
Well, also, Iceborne's not that old, and Iceborne, you know, is a huge expansion that goes on top of World. So.
that's true. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting one as well. And then probably the other one that I'm thinking, I'm just trying to work through it now. They really didn't have them off like Nintendo consoles for a while. So if you're like a Sony fan and you're not really a Nintendo player, you actually hadn't had a Monster Hunter game for a while from memory.
I know you want again for a while.
Because it was on PSP from memory. So yeah, I guess that's also probably going to drive some of the demand for it. So now I have played this game a lot more, and it's finally clicked with me. And the other thing is, I didn't realize, guys, because you know how I was saying how I'm so shit at Monster Hunter, and I'm happy to admit it. And everyone's saying how easy this game is. I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. I'm getting killed all the time.
Let me guess.
Yeah, go on.
Because you mentioned it last week.
Oh, did I?
Well, you mentioned something last week. Is it because you weren't sharpening your blade?
Well, that was part of the problem. Plus, I didn't realize you kind of like you're meant to back off and then like heal and stuff. I was playing all the hub quests. You know, the multiplayer quests.
Yeah, I haven't got far enough in to know exactly the quest breakdown with this one.
So like so I only realized after I beat one of the quests, and it's saying the game is telling me don't play these quests by yourself. They're not meant to be played solo. You're meant to play these with other people. Like that's the whole point of the hub quests.
Yeah,
No wonder the game
The
is
village
hard.
quests are solo, whereas the hub quests are multiplayer ones. And it scales, so it's not like impossible or anything. But I was playing, I'm like, why am I like getting my ass absolutely like handed to me with these things? And then I went back and played the village ones. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm smashing these ones out, right? But yeah, like Swinny, like I kind of have my head around the loop and everything like that, and I'm like, damn, I'm pretty addicted. I had to actually put it down because I was like, I'm not going to get through a game of some other year games that I need to play. But I'm so looking forward to going back to this game. It was one of my most anticipated games this year, and my guess is I will sink in like 150 hours in this game.
Whoa,
That's my guess at this stage.
that's kind of nuts.
pretty common for Monster Hunter. So.
Yeah, I heard that, and I'm like, it also
you
gives
have
me
to?
that Breath of the Wild vibe of addiction. I don't know. It's just like something about it. It's just.
I'm worried. I want to pick it up, but I'm worried about that. What is it about? And do you have to spend that much to really get something out of the game?
No, I don't think you need to play that much time. But I don't know. I just really like the loop. Just like the combat. I like the setting. I like the aesthetics of it. I like that it's odd game for me because I've never played Monster Hunter before. There's so many weird like niche things in the game and systems, and it doesn't explain half of them. Because
I went through the like.
we should say this because we didn't say earlier that you've actually picked it up when you said you weren't going to.
Yeah, I picked it up. You convinced me through.
Literally
about it.
in the podcast, we're saying, "Hey, you should get it," and you go, "Nah, I'll get it later, whatever." And then 2 hours later, you bought it.
So yes, I can't refute that. But so I went through. I've only ever played World and tiny bit of like one of the 3DS ones.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, like I was trying to sit there just thinking to myself, what's the impression Integot's getting from all this? Because it does do a bit of a tutorial, take you around, but it's just like
not really.
There's one pop-up screen, and then it's like, oh, if you didn't get that, then you had like it's pretty wild. But The good thing
Yeah,
about
it's like
Monster
here's
Hunter is
6
that
pages of really critical information that's boring but super critical, and you're about to fight someone and you just want to skip it all, like I've done a few times, and then gone, shit, what the hell was that tutorial saying?
but once you start, like, it starts creeping in. Or you start, okay, oh, that was that thing that was mentioned ages ago, and that's why that person's there in the hub.
Yeah,
It will start to click and click and click and keep on going.
I agree with that.
And then at some point, you're like, oh man, this is just really, really addictive. So,
Yeah, I think it took me like 10 hours, and then I was like, oh, okay, I'm pretty much into this game. And then I had to put it down. I was like, damn it. I really want to just keep playing this game, but I just feel like I'm not going to be able to play LA Noire and Deus Ex and Dark Souls and just, get deeper into those games.
I was going to pick it up if it wasn't for those games as well.
Look, I played all of those games, but I want to complete them all, right? I feel like you have to complete them. So, but yeah, this game, I'm really, really into it. Like I said, I'm super into like playing it. After I get through most of those games, there's a PC version of it coming out next year, which is fascinating. And I'm kind of glad that I never played World, even though I own it. It's like literally just behind me. Because I think just hearing people who played World and then the graphics in this version, it's kind of like a downgrade, obviously, because you're talking about PS4 going to Switch. But to me, I look at it and I go, this looks like the best Switch game I've seen. I don't know about you, Swinny.
Runs alright?
It looks really nice. It runs pretty decently, actually.
Okay.
Considering the early footage looked a bit rough when they first showed it,
Yes.
but at the same time, I haven't been in a situation where there's like a monster battle going on in front of me with all this like scrap going on. But it seems to, from all reports, it seems to run pretty steady.
It's a solid 30. And like I've always said, if you can hit like a solid 30, it's fine, right? It's not as good as 60, but in a weird way, I'd prefer that than something that goes choppy between 30 and 60.
Oh, way better, yeah.
It does, like I've played, like
I'm
I
the
said,
same.
for about 10 hours, and I can recall like maybe 3 or 4 times where I've noticed the frame drops. But weirdly enough, Swinny, I don't think it's even as much to do with the battles with the large monsters. It's just like weird, like I think it was like loading in, stuff into RAM or something like that. Like when I'm going into really different areas quickly, and it kind of like threw it off. Like I was on the Palamute going as fast as I could. Very cool game. And bloody Swinny, I gave him an open invite. It's like essentially a multiplayer game. He gets the game. I'm like, sweet. Hit me up when you want to play multiplayer. Absolute fucking silence. Nothing.
Because I've been too busy to play the games I wanted to play this week.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
He did that to me with Code Vein. So
He always does that.
Don't feel too bad
He
about
always
it.
does that. It's all about the Chivos.
That is not a
Yeah.
comparable situation.
It's a totally comparable situation.
It is.
You got me to buy that game.
It's the reverse situation.
Okay, it's a reverse
I bought
situation.
it because he bought it, not the other way, which is what you're saying.
No, this is actually no. You're right. Code Vein is even worse because you got me to buy it, and then you didn't even play it, even though you told me to get it so we could play it.
No, okay.
That's a way worse
I think
situation.
I've clarified this before. All right, at the time, I didn't know you didn't own it. You asked me, have you heard of Code Vein? Do you want to play co-op? I'm saying, yeah, that sounds cool. I didn't know you didn't buy it. You didn't have it already.
I didn't have it. I bought it so we could play co-op, and then you didn't want to play.
That's what he's
Anyway,
like, audience.
Time to move on.
Wait till he has the face cam so we can ridicule him.
Yeah.
All right, news item number 4. CD Projekt Red and CD
I think
Projekt
it's
Group.
said there
CD
Projekt. Said there Projekt. You
CD
gotta say
Projekt.
it properly.
So they're in the headlines again.
Projekt.
They're in the headlines again. And they had a really, really interesting public strategy update. So essentially, instead of their in-person presentations to investors, they actually did it all on YouTube. But it was a highly produced version, which is, like I'm obviously in the corporate world, so as you, Mike, same as you, Mike, in kind of roughly the same type of space. Normally with these investor sessions, they don't like to make it really slick and, marketing based or anything like that. They try to still kind of keep it straight and narrow. So I thought that was really fascinating from the start. So we just wanted to call out, some of the interesting things there. So they really laid out some of the groundwork of what they're going to do going forward, which included their annual plan. So they're shifting from a 5-year plan to an annual plan that they'll update every year, obviously. Very huge focus on Cyberpunk 2077 and Witcher. There's a bit later, and we'll chat on it, just around the quote-unquote flywheel, which is getting super businessy, super corporate, but it does seem to be a massive thing for them. They, by itself have referenced the fact that the way that the PR went for Cyberpunk, they're not going to repeat that. So they may tease games, but they will not have a huge campaign until they're super confident of hitting a date. And almost like the biggest bit of news, and there's other things that we'll call out, but almost the biggest bit of news is like they're pretty much changing the way they develop games from next year on, which is moving to agile, so having cross-functional teams. So they have very strict departments at the moment. They're going to break it down into agile teams. So you normally see up to 12 people. So you'll have artists, programmers, all different people involved, and splitting into 2 big teams. So this is under their Red 2.0 initiative, where they'll actually support 2 new AAA titles that they'll be developing next year. So Swinny, what did you think about all of this?
Well, first of all, look, it was an interesting watch. As you said, there's points where it does get super corporate, but I mean that it's a strategy presentation. Normally they're worse than this. At least they did make it a bit more interesting because they knew that they were going to release this to the public. But I did find it very disingenuous where they're at the start they're doing the whole, as you said, like, oh, normally we'd have you all in a room and would do this, as if they're speaking to...
Who's they? Yeah.
Yeah, no, as if they're speaking to the employees.
Yeah.
But then everything else seemed like, and they kind of they start talking about, oh, gamers, almost like they changed the audience. So it's almost like they threw that in there just to put on a bit of a facade that this is strange for internal only, but then everything else, or a lot of the rest of it. But look, it was really interesting. There's a lot of good in this, especially when they start talking about...
Debatable.
No, there's that's all I'm saying. There's a lot of good, but then there's also other stuff. I think that they're very good with the policies you said about the marketing, the pre-release hype. I think that is a very, they had to make changes, and I think that is a fantastic change that they're going to make sure that they show off games on all the platforms that it's coming to. They're not going to have, concept demos they're going to try to be a lot more upfront with that stuff. And there's a lot of good around the roadmap for the future, Witcher and Cyberpunk games, whether or not it's things we know about like Monster Slayer and all that stuff, or just, the DLC and expansions. Look, there's good in there, but the bad for me is the fact that it kind of, like this whole multiplayer situation with Cyberpunk, it was one of the most confusing explanations that I've seen. And I understand, look...
I know, it was nuts.
to their credit, all the people that spoke, very good English and everything, but I don't know who worded this explanation about why they're changing their direction. So basically, I guess to clarify, so they're reworking their plan. So originally they planned on doing a standalone Cyberpunk kind of product, multiplayer product, and instead... And this is my quick interpretation of it. Maybe you've got a better way, integot or Mike, but they're instead investigating technology to allow them to incorporate online and community features in all their future games. But it's like, okay, what does that... So does that mean there is no longer a standalone Cyberpunk? Like, that's the impression I'm getting. A lot of people aren't happy about that because, a lot of people thought that would be part and parcel of the product that they're buying. But I thought from the start, I'd always had the impression it was a separate thing. But
100%. No, yeah. I think everyone thought that. Like, they were never...
There's a lot of people that are annoyed, so they didn't think that.
No, look, okay, we should put our cards on the table. I'm not a huge fan of CDPR, or like CD Projekt, so the company. CDPR is the development arm of CD Projekt. So... I probably dislike CD Projekt and don't mind CDPR. They're just developers, right? Like, I feel bad for them in some cases, but...
They're amazing developers.
I should say, like, put it out there. Like, I'm probably on the anti-side of these guys, whereas you both are... I think you're very optimistic about them, Swinny. I think Mike's right in the middle. Pretty aligned to our video presentation.
Games, so.
I think they make absolutely great games. It's just, I think... So on that topic, and sorry, I don't mean to butt in or anything.
They make great games, but like the PS4 version and the base Xbox One version
so the corporate
of CD Projekt
component of it, I don't like either. and which is quite ironic because the entire presentation that they did was so corporate-y, it wasn't even funny.
It was insane.
It's
like
I
one
was
of my
actually
presentations.
I know. I was working on a strategy pack on Thursday, so like yesterday, and I'm watching this thing and I'm going, wow, this is a gaming company. What has a gaming company become? Especially a gaming company that started its grassroots.
But, I mean, all gaming
with something
companies
like
would
The
have
Witcher.
this kind of. Sorry for cutting in. All gaming companies that are of their size would have these kind of presentations.
No, of course, yeah. It reaches that certain level where I think it needs to have that. But I think I find it ironic, and I don't know what the devs that worked on Cyberpunk will make of watching. I think, honestly, if I was a dev that worked on Cyberpunk, especially when the whole idea behind Cyberpunk is how corporations are screwing over the world,
Yeah.
and you see this presentation from your
Ironic.
superiors about exactly them doing that and making this entire thing the most corporate-y spiel you could possibly get, the irony is just insane. And I don't know what I'd feel like as a dev. I'd actually be pretty pissed off, to be honest, if this kind of thing came out. I get why they have to do it, and I get that they need to run it as a business like that. But the way it was done, and the fact that like little tiny details were really weird. You know, if I was a company like that where I had to do a marketing spiel like this, to do a strategy pack or a strategy presentation, I would at the very least interject a bit of humor or some flair that's sort of associated to the company itself. Instead of, they literally used like basic icons that you get that I've seen in so many different strategy packs that you get from like flaticon.com. That's exactly what I was thinking, because I've seen the same. I swear to God, I've used the same icons before.
I could Google it right now.
Totally could. Instead of like actually using, you know, Witcher or Cyberpunk icons to at least give it that little bit of human touch, if you could call it that, that's related to the company. So I was actually, I get it, but man, I was really disappointed watching something like this. So I don't know what the actual devs themselves would feel like. I'd feel like they're like, oh, just rolling their eyes seeing something like this.
How do you know that's just not how it is all the time there, or at least of recent times? Because this is the one of, I don't know. Maybe they have released this stuff in the past, but maybe this is just the stuff they do all the time. And
no, look, it might be. I just look. I don't want to stereotype game developers, because I am not one, but I can imagine game developers in general are not into that corporate shit. They're not the suit wearing corporate strategy writing, bullshit business people.
Half the people that work in corporations don't care about that crap.
I know that, but having to kind of like, I think it's so ironic and just so not.
I kind of get what like Mike's saying, because I know some mates who, because I did programming at uni, so same as you, Mike. But a lot of my mates, like, there's some of them went into like games and game development. Some, like most didn't. Most went to the corporate path. And the ones that went down the other path, it's more artistic, more like, I don't give a shit about money. I just want to do something I'm passionate about, doing something fun, creative. And honestly, like, they get ripped off, man. They're like more of like much better coders on average, I would say, than a lot of the corporate people I know. And they're probably getting half the money, right? Yeah. So it's kind of that space. Look, like, I kind of get where you're coming from, Swinny. And I think it's just that we fundamentally have very different ways to approach these things. See, I really dislike CD Projekt coming out saying that they're holier than thou, that they're totally different in terms of other game companies. We don't do crunch. We're pro gamer. We're honest company, all this stuff. And I feel like everything that they said, they basically threw it in the bin and said, well, we want to make more money, right? Because there's no reason why they should have released Cyberpunk when they did. And they did it anyway, because they wanted the money, right? Well, like, you can't argue with anything else other than that.
Well, I'm not talking about, like, I'm not defending any of that stuff. We know how horrible that is. My question is, what are you expecting them to do at this time? Just stay quiet? Like, they've got to rebuild. And to rebuild, you've got to communicate what you're rebuilding.
Yeah, but this was not a good communication for me, right? And honestly, I could do like a 3-hour video on just this 20-something minute video, 24-minute video, right? From the start, they go, oh, our values are quality, right? That's their first and most important value. Well, if your value is quality, you have absolutely fucking failed, right?
Because they've admitted that. They've said that
you don't have it as your value.
No, but the point is they've always had that, like, the quality of their games.
But it's not their value. It's not their value. Like, that's just the BS value.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Integot on this one. I think they do. Well, it's a weird one. I kind of agree with you both because I feel like it's a value that they might hold.
Nah, it's not.
They just don't adhere to it enough.
That's not
in
how
some
values work.
instances.
Values
I know
are
that,
the things you do,
but-
not the things you promise you do, right?
Well, it's the things you have
their
on a
value
wall
is-
somewhere in an office and in a bunch of PowerPoint presentation packs that are supposed to govern the decisions that you make, which clearly they didn't really use properly when it came to decisions like releasing Cyberpunk way too early.
Yeah. Well, no, but
So-
I think from a business decision, it might not have been the worst decision. I might have made the same decision from a business perspective. I'm not saying from a business perspective, though, right? And if their values...
But from a business perspective, I wouldn't have made that same decision. Because, come on.
No, the amount of money that was on the line... No. The amount of money that was on the line...
Yeah, but the amount of money you could lose as a result of making a decision like
No,
that
but look at people
massive.
like Swinny. He's already, like, eating up what they're saying here.
No, that's the
But he
point.
won't
Is
buy the
that
game now.
I
He
know
will,
the
he
fact-
will.
No, look, okay, that's a separate thing. What I want to basically say with this is, I know it's a value of theirs because I've played their
It's not.
games that are of high quality. Okay, Witcher 3, Witcher 2, these are amazing high quality games.
Yeah, but Witcher 3 release broken.
But quality isn't always about, okay, is the game buggy or not? The quality
Yes,
of
it
the
is.
experience, the quality of the experience, the quality of the story, the quality of the systems, the mechanics. There's a lot more than just, is it buggy or not?
No. So, like a Tesla is not high quality. If you sit in a Tesla, you'll notice that the dash doesn't even sit properly in some of them, right?
Yeah, the
you can
doors
never
don't align,
argue
the panels are so
exactly.
bad.
You can never argue it's high quality. I'm not saying The Witcher 3 isn't a masterpiece. That's a different thing. It's a different thing. It's like, is there depth to the game? Is there passion? All these kind of things. 100%, right? But quality has a certain meaning, and they do not make quality games. It's just not what they do.
You
They've
haven't
never
even
done it.
played any of their games.
Are you disagreeing that Witcher 3 released broken?
It didn't release broken. It released with bugs, but it wasn't broken.
Far out. I thought you were an Xbox shill. You're like the CDPR shill.
No, Witcher 3 was not broken. It was buggy, but it was not broken like
That is not
Cyberpunk.
high quality. That's not what quality means. Quality
No.
has a meaning. That's not the meaning of quality.
What I'm saying is that they're in the past, their values, they've put out very, very high quality games. Obviously, Cyberpunk was not one of them. It doesn't mean that they have to trash that value just because they didn't live up to it.
Well,
for
that's
that
changed
release.
anyway now. It's quality and team something, wasn't it? Because they changed
No,
that.
this is their new value. Their core
No,
value.
no.
They go-
Their core value was quality, but that's
No,
now
it's not
changed
was.
to
It is.
quality
No.
and...
I'm looking at it. It's saying quality as our top priority.
Oh,
Anyway.
but I thought the new one was quality and team or something.
No. The next one
They
is
added
passionate
team to
teams
it.
with our as our greatest strength.
Anyway, I think we're wasting too long on what is a corporate value, but they reaffirmed that is a top priority for them, and that is one of the reasons. Obviously, they're
Yeah.
and alongside money, which is a primary reason, trying to fix all this crap.
They don't mention money once in this
Oh, well,
presentation.
yeah. I imagine I would love. I'm sure there is a company out there that just has a value that's like money. It just has money.
I
No,
just want to make
Macquarie.
money.
Macquarie did. Like legitimately, like it's one of the values. See,
hilarious.
again, this is where like I get annoyed with companies like CD Projekt, right? Macquarie are very honest with what they're all about. They were about how do you make a lot of money for ourselves and how do you make a lot of money for our clients so we both win, right? Like that's just being honest, right? I find that CD Projekt are one of the most dishonest companies I've ever seen from a business perspective. But yeah, we do need to move on within this presentation because there's so much in here that I want to talk about. Cyberpunk is going to be a massive franchise for them. Like the fact that they're calling Cyberpunk a franchise when the only game in the franchise, quote unquote, is one, and it got pulled from the biggest store that's available, which is PlayStation Store. It's like a bit of an interesting franchise. And also, they don't own the IP. I don't understand this company. This company is bizarre to me.
But they don't own the Witcher IP.
No. They have an agreement now on that. So
Yeah, but
like,
I'm saying, I mean, they're both adapted IPs. So
yeah, I got to be careful because I don't know the full detail. I know with Witcher they came up with an agreement with the author. They have a really interesting law in Poland. It's fascinating, actually. It's like I've never heard of this in any legal field where they did a deal with the author, but Polish law says that if a deal like this for, you know, IP or anything like that becomes so egregiously unfair over time that it can be renegotiated or thrown out.
Wow.
And the
Yeah, I
author,
remember that. I remember
the author
that.
said, "I don't give a fuck about video games." He actually hates
Yeah.
video games. The author, the Polish author, and he's a god in Poland. Like, these games are massive. These books are massive, and he's just like, video games, they're fucking shit. Whatever. It literally is like $10,000 or something. He gave them the rights to Witcher,
It was
right?
ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
And it was for not just The Witcher, it was like other associated properties with their version of The Witcher, right? And then he, the bastard, in my opinion, because he's like F video games, and then, you know, comes back later saying, well, this is unfair. Like, this game's made more money than my book series. And yeah, they had to renegotiate. And then as part of that, they've got a deal to, like, they can, you know, make more games and merchandise, and he gets a cut of it. I don't think they have the same thing with Cyberpunk. I think it's a bit different, the arrangement there.
I just meant they're both not IPs they created from scratch.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Well, you know, they're
I
not
do
a
find-
very original company, so.
I find it interesting why I mean, I don't know, this is a whole different topic of discussion, why they didn't just create their own sci-fi.
Oh, I do not
Why they
understand
had to
I don't
use the
understand it.
name. Because, I mean, they could have created the whole world and the name
Correct.
and everything without needing to have anything to do with
100%.
the Cyberpunk IP.
But it gives them credit. It
fascinating.
gives them street cred.
It's probably down
That
to
they've
that,
taken
yeah.
this tabletop RPG. You know.
I don't think people, Swinny, I think mainstream people don't know. I think
No.
mainstream people just think it's
I
their
wouldn't
IP.
have cared.
Oh, I
Yeah.
agree. But I'm just saying, like, that's one of the reasons, because, you know, it wouldn't have cost much to gain.
It's probably down to
Cyberpunk
that. They
license.
probably didn't have, the cost would have probably been low enough that they didn't.
But I'm not sure if, like, the agreement was under Polish law, but it feels like if this becomes a mega series, they might need to renegotiate it again.
I don't
just
think it would have been
seems
under Polish
dumb.
though, because Cyberpunk is
But
from
their
a
company
US.
is. No, their company is Polish company. So,
Yeah, but I mean, they would have had an agreement with the rights in the US. I
yeah, but
would
you could
assume.
file in Poland. Under
Anyway,
Polish law,
anyway.
potentially.
Yeah,
But
it's
what I
also
wanted to call out
fascinating.
was that they view Cyberpunk as a huge franchise for them. So it seems like they're going to make a sequel to this game. Like, has to, based on what they're saying.
I just want to know how agile development's going to go for them.
Well, they've got Agile and Waterfall in the presentation on the same
Well,
slide.
so I remember they had the from and the to. So they went focusing on AAA RPGs to genre blending with AAA RPG at its core, and then they went single player to single player plus online, and then they had waterfall development to agile delivery,
Yeah.
and then they had AAA game focus to
Are you
AAA
memorizing this or?
No, I'm reading it.
Okay, good.
Plus broad IP ecosystem in mobile and beyond gaming. And then the last one that I was trying to find
and
before was...
I'm gonna object to this.
Yeah, it's... Okay, just a sec. Well, yeah, I know you will object to this one. They had quality focused to team and quality focused. The reason why they had that, and I get why they had that, is because they didn't want to seem like, oh, well, you guys only focus on quality at the cost of everyone's well-being. Which, by the way, they did actually talk about how personal well-being and mental health is really important, and I do think that the management is taking that seriously because of everything that's been going on.
Look, if you find, like, if there's one thing that you'd get me to, like, give them absolute shit about, was what they did with Crunch. Like, anyway, we've had a whole
We did.
segment about that, but yeah, just want to say that, look, I felt that was just like, that was a part that just made me roll my eyes, honestly.
Oh, and the thing that really pissed me off with that as well was they're talking about mental health, as if it's like the people's mental health, like they've got problems or something, so we'll help them out with their mental health. It's like, no, you're working people to the bone on a game that you shouldn't ship, and people internally to your company are saying, do not ship this game. Like, they were shocked when they were talking about it being shipped in March, like last 2 years ago now, wasn't it? Or last year, March, it was meant to come out. Yeah, last year, March. And people were like, are you kidding me? This game can't come out in March.
Yeah,
This is insane. The last thing I wanted to say about this, and I know, Swinny, you're getting pissed at me in this whole segment, is that just when they're talking about the year plans and the PR stuff, and I totally agree with that. I think every company, I genuinely don't think you need more than 6 months to hype up a game. So like when they're talking about their campaign, so there's a difference between, you know, if you look at Bethesda, Elder Scrolls 6, we're working on it. It's going to happen, right? You kind of need to say that because you want to get good devs to come along and make that game, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's fine that Bethesda came out and said, Elder Scrolls 6, it's happening. And then say nothing
But
about
that's
it
it.
for
Just
4
at a high
years.
level, it's still happening.
Right?
Hold your horses. It's coming.
But they also had to. They were bouncing back from Fallout 76.
Sure.
That was one of the reasons why they really went hard with that.
Yeah, and they had this weird thing where it's like they had to like do they started doing E3 and they didn't stop, so they were just like, oh shit, we have to announce something. But I do think that that's fine to tease that, and I think it's fine, and we'll get into it. Like if they go Witcher 4 is happening, right? But I think you only need like 6 months to hype up a game, to go this game's coming, and then that really short window that you have when the game's going to be coming out. Like, that's when you can start the real big marketing campaign. I don't think you need years to market these games. I've never understood that personally. But yeah, Swinny, the last thing I wanted to call out was this little nugget that the guy had where he goes, once we think Cyberpunk... So they're releasing patches for Cyberpunk. They just released a patch and we'll talk about it soon.
Yeah.
For 1.2. They go, when we feel like the game is quality enough, we'll work on the next gen version of Cyberpunk 2077. I was like, whoa, they don't even think the game is quality right now. Like, and that's 1.2. If they are talking to Sony and Sony actually like looks at this stuff carefully, they're going to go, dude, you don't even think that this game's quality. Like, why the hell would we let it back on the store? And I don't want to go into it because we've got another segment on it, but that one really shocked me when I saw that. Was there anything else you wanted to mention, Swinny?
No, because I think we should get into the Cyberpunk patch stuff.
All right. Well,
there's a lot on this topic that I want to talk about, but not now.
All right. Well, let's get into the next item of news. Number 5, Cyberpunk 2077. So we have patch 1.2, and then a question mark. I think more from Swinny and Mike. Will this get Cyberpunk 2077 back on the PlayStation Store? So I actually went through and counted all of the patch line items that they had, and it was 509 patch line items, specific patch notes.
Damn, son.
about from version 1.2, which is all live on the stores right now. So again, Sony, just to recap, pulled the game from digital stores and PS4, PS5 back in December due to very poor performance on the base PS4 models, and primarily because CD Projekt Red unilaterally told people that they could get refunds, which was actually against Sony's policy to get refunds for games, which caused huge issues. And then Sony actually, for the first time, said that they will allow refunds on games that have been purchased already. And even to this day, if I go into some stores, they still don't allow me to buy Cyberpunk just off the shelf. Like, you have to go talk to the people at the counter about the game, and they note that the game is buggy, which is insane to me. So Mike, you had a few things to mention. I don't know if you've played the 1.2 patch or not.
No, I have not played it just yet. I was actually going to wait for the patch beyond this patch to fix the issues that the patch introduced. But I actually struggled trying to find a really good summary of the 509 specific patch line items. Because I know we had a little discussion about this offline. I value seeing a full list. It's really cool because then you can specifically see if they fixed a thing that he had a problem with. But I just want to like a high level. Hey, give me the top 10 biggest things you guys did. Stuff like no more instant spawning cops, which I know a lot of people, was a pet peeve for a lot of people. I like to just read high level stuff like that and then go into the details of, oh, wow, you fixed this particular issue I had with this particular quest that I did one time. So I didn't really, I went through the list and stuff. It's hard to also tell what's what because there's so many like quest specific stuff that either I did the quest and I don't remember running into the bug, or I'm not up to the quest yet, so I'm not sure if that's, I would have had that issue or not. It's a really weird one in general because I still really, really enjoyed the experience of Cyberpunk. I know that it wasn't what people expected it to be. It certainly wasn't what I expected it to be, and I think it had a lot of quality issues. But I love the experience. There were so many things about it that just worked so well, and I really enjoyed what I played on PC. So I don't know. I need to install 1.2. The only thing is I'm hoping they don't fix the glitch. I didn't see it anywhere in the patch notes. There's a glitch where you can you can, not that you need to because you get plenty of cash in this game, but there are certain cars and stuff that I wanted to get, and I'm like, man, I don't have the time to get all the cash required to get these cars. And you can sell this particular painting that I won't spoil to anyone who needs who doesn't want to cheat in this, for a really hefty amount, and you can keep buying it back for like a really low amount, selling it, buying it, selling it. I didn't see that being patched, so I was happy with that.
I don't know why, but you always are obsessed about finding ways to generate money in video games.
I know it's ironic,
like
given that I don't do that in real life. Yeah, I find so many loopholes in all these games to generate the max amount of money. Like in GTA, billions of dollars playing the stock market. Diablo selling stuff on the auction.
Yeah, you always work it out. You always work it out.
Stuff.
You always,
but not in real life. Here I am in real life with my Povo freaking.
You should be a trader or something like that in real life. But
yeah, well.
Look, Swinny might be able to summarize it better than I can. But from what I understand and I've read, they've pretty much made every quest completable now. So quests for many people were not completable, like certain specific quests. So that was a big aim for this patch, to make sure that you complete all the quests. And supposedly that is the case now. It has introduced weird bugs, this new version even, but at least the quests are completable. Is that right, Swinny?
Look, I haven't read the notes because they wouldn't make a lot of sense to someone who hasn't played the game. But one thing about this is, look, this is a huge patch, and obviously the patch notes are ridiculous. I do agree that 100% that a summary would have been fantastic for the big high-level stuff. There's obviously people out there who would have just done it for them, but you shouldn't have to go looking for that. But one thing I think it's important to remember with this, and it's exactly the point you're just making, is that this is focusing a lot on those quests. And in a game like this, there are so many quests. So there's going to be so many specific things to mention for the people that are looking for that specific fix. Someone that's played through Assassin's Creed Valhalla recently and had specific issues that I was checking out their patch notes for each release. While they weren't as big as this, they were at least probably 3/4 of the size. I'm not defending Valhalla in any way either. Like, that game had a lot of issues and still does. So the reason why I like this, although it is ridiculous to look at, is the fact that the community does like this amount of detail. But I 100% agree, for the people that are looking, who haven't, let's say, purchased the game yet, and they're like, okay, I want to look at the high-level changes they're making, this huge patch, to see if I want to actually get this game. Obviously, I'm not a PlayStation owner to buy digitally because I can't. But I'm one of those people right now, assessing when it makes sense to actually buy this game and start playing it. And I'm with Mike. It sounds like the next big patch, that already roadmapped, may be the time to do that, because who knows how far away the next gen one is. It could be 2022 at this point.
Well, yeah, and as we just spoke about, like CD Projekt and their restructure, that they want to start working on AAA titles in parallel from 2022, I feel like for this holiday, they'll want to have a next-gen version. So they might need to get the developers to crunch under their team and quality mandate and value to get it done.
So do we, because they've said that, I think it's their SVP of Business Development said that it's up to Sony, apparently. When do we think maybe that next big patch will be the time when we may see it be relisted on PlayStation Store?
What do you reckon, Mike?
I don't know. I reckon a bit after that, because I feel like if they're true to what they said, which if I'm not mistaken is they're going to focus on fixing the game up. And fixing the game up is a weird one because it's not just about fixing the bugs, it's fixing the overall experience. And I think that includes pedestrian AI, police AI, things that make you feel immersed in the world. And I think that's where the game falls a little bit short. I would imagine it's after that. But what I still don't get is just, it's going to be such a massive struggle to try to get a game of this size and the complexity that it is with all the different intertwined systems to run on on existing generation stuff, to be able to be available again for those platforms.
Yeah, I
just don't see how it's possible.
I'm just searching now to see, and this is where a summary would be super helpful. CD Projekt Red.
There's no summary.
you know, like at what point do they address the fact that it essentially can't run on a base PS4?
Well, so that's not in this
Yeah.
patch.
Okay,
And
okay.
and the weird thing is, and you guys won't believe this, the weird thing is that in certain scenarios, the game drops more frames now in this new version than it did in the version that came out
Oh, I
that
can
was
believe
patched
it.
in
I
December
can
and
believe
January. So, because what they're doing is they're trying to re-architecture the way that it loads into, like, because the game does a lot of streaming because it's open world, right? And they're trying to squeeze the memory bandwidth on that because it was actually making the game crash. So to me, crashing is way, way worse than the game being choppy or ugly or whatever. If games are crashing, honestly, like from a console perspective, it's almost like unbelievable. PC, yeah, games crash all the time. Even like Rocket League crashes for me weirdly every now and then, right? But like a console game crashing, I don't know. To me, that's completely unacceptable.
God, Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a funny one for me because I feel like if this game had come out with the January patches that they had, I think it would have been fine. I think it would have passed certification with Sony and they wouldn't have pulled it. But look, Sony, yes, it's now run by more of the American arm, but they are a Japanese company. And they don't forget, man, Japanese companies. Like they have long lists of people. And them
Blacklist.
like CD Projekt unilaterally saying that people could get refunds pissed them off so much that they pulled a game where they've never done anything like that before. And I actually think they may never let it go back on the PS4 store. And I'm almost like now kind of erring on that side, maybe, because they're just fucking like vengeful, Sony. And I think they probably look at it and go, in a weird way, in a sick way, having it as a PS5 exclusive, like maybe they look at that and go, that's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, but just install base.
But they don't need they don't need Cyberpunk.
I'm not saying they need them, but I mean, if you just look at the fact that it's still probably going to be pretty difficult to get a lot of PS5s out this year.
Agree.
That there's just so much more potential, essentially because they're making the cut from each time a digital purchase is made.
Yeah,
there's so much more potential for them to actually make money if it's on the PS4.
But I guess my question then would be, why wouldn't they bring it back on after they did their December Jan patch, which solved most of the crashing issues?
Well, I think the strategy from CD.
Just say
Projekt.
CD.
And it's CD Projekt.
No, they don't even. It's not even a hard inflection at the end. It's project.
All right, let's not attempt to accent.
Anyway,
hey, he's like of that European area.
He's not Polish.
No, but it's basically
don't dox him.
Yeah, don't dox me. It's close enough. Let's just say it's close enough to Poland. So, what I think the strategy should be: wait another 10 years till Sony close up the PS4 store, and then it's not a problem anymore.
Yeah, look, maybe with the next patch, because this patch wasn't about performance as much as re-architecturing it and then making the quest completable, making sure things don't just hard crash.
Yeah, Swinny needs that.
Ooh, I found Stadia specific patch notes.
That's they're right at the end as well, which made me laugh. They're like the last patch notes right at the end. I don't know. So when do you think, Mike? You didn't say when you think it will go back on. I don't think it will go back on the store.
I don't know.
I don't think
yeah, you might actually be right with that one.
Which I think... if it was Nintendo, it would never go back on the store. They're so vengeful, Nintendo.
So I don't know why... Yeah, I mean, the problem is they already have physical copies that they've made and sold, and they still need to support those. So it's a case of, well, what do you do with those? You're going to have to support them. But if I could make a decision... It might not make business sense necessarily, but I probably wouldn't put it back on the store.
Or you know what they'll probably do, actually, when I think about it? They'll probably do it when Cyberpunk gets released as the next-gen upgrade, and they'll bring it back on the PS4 store as well. That's my guess. So when they launch it on the PS5, as this is the PS5 version of Cyberpunk 2077, they'll allow it back on the PS4 store. That's my prediction.
Yeah, potentially. But I also think you got to think I never played it on the PS4. I heard it's broken.
It's so bad.
But I've also had people play it on the PS4, and I know mates, kids were playing it on. Probably shouldn't be playing it because they're still technically kids, like 16 or something though. And they seem to have no issues with it, as in they enjoyed it and played it. So I don't know if there's definitely an element of expectations and stuff as well.
Well, the facts don't lie. The proof is out there.
Oh, absolutely. Don't get me wrong. I think the overwhelming things that I'm hearing is that it's not right for the platform. But interestingly enough, I've also actually heard about people who don't have an issue with it on that platform. So it's fascinating, yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next item. Item number 6 and the last piece of news. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt next gen update. So maybe Swinny, do you want to take this because you love this game?
Yeah, so I just, this kind of dropped in amongst the rest of the CDPR news that we've just spent the last 40 minutes talking about. And I just wanted to specifically just kind of, just separate this a little bit and just focus on The Witcher 3. So the next-gen version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which had already been confirmed but has now been confirmed for release in the second half of this year, which is great. The version is basically just titled Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition, which is the name of what the Game of the Year edition was outside of Europe and Australia. And interestingly enough, the Switch version in Australia was also called Complete Edition.
Yeah.
I actually called up Mike earlier. That's the only person I know that owns it physically that I knew of.
Which is amazing, by the way.
Can you confirm that it says Complete Edition on the front of the Switch box? So it's just weird,
indeed.
Like Game of the Year Complete Edition, whatever.
Or it doesn't, and I just said that, so I can correct you next week.
So I don't like when they call it Game of the Year edition, but I understand what that means. But I feel like a regular punter wouldn't understand that.
No,
Complete Edition makes
Complete Edition's what it should be called.
obvious. Yeah.
Well, Game of the Year is kind of a holdover from late 360, early Xbox One era when that was just a thing. Now, no game does it.
It doesn't make any more sense. Yeah,
Doesn't
I
make
think complete
sense.
makes way more sense.
Just-
Ultimate, complete, one of the complete is the best
Complete's
one
the
because it
best.
is.
Complete's the
It's
best.
about the complete. It should be the ultimate complete edition.
the Snyder Cut.
So just
Snyder
to
Cut.
just to reconfirm, so it will contain the expansions Heart of Stone and Blood of Wine, as well as any of the other DLC that came post launch. But the most important part, which look we already knew, but I just want to cover it again, is that the update will feature ray tracing, which is the part that I'm
totally the most important part.
super pumped about. Generally upgraded visuals and improved load times naturally because of the SSDs. But owners of the existing game or existing owners of the game, I should say, on PC and last-gen consoles will receive the update for free, which I don't know if that was new news or not. That's the part that I'm really excited about because I don't have to repurchase the game. Although it would probably go on sale for like $10 6 months later because that's just the way The Witcher 3 goes.
Probably.
But
It's still about $20 normally.
But I'm interested. Like, I have both The Witcher 3 and the Game of the Year edition, which were different SKUs on the Xbox One. So I hope that they do it for both.
I think they will.
You'd have to, surely.
Never know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they will.
It's
to be
CD
honest.
Projekt.
I don't know if they will.
Oh, but they've generally, they've been, from that standpoint, they've been very consumer friendly with giving stuff away and things like that. So
yeah, that's true.
But
Yeah.
And it's actually your stuff. You can download and keep a copy of
Gave
it yourself.
away an alpha game.
yeah,
Oh no, you paid for that. Sorry.
but the thing
Yeah,
is,
$450.
Oh yeah, in your case.
but the,
Plus another copy. Sorry,
Oi.
go on, Swinny.
Yeah, so this ray tracing thing, I've experienced ray tracing on a couple of games on the Series X so far, but I'm just super pumped. I'm just to see what that looks like, And I've got it on PC as well, so I can always check it out on there. But actually, I don't have a video card that would support
So
that
this
yet,
is
but-
you remember you guys I was telling you about how I was playing it on the Switch when they introduced the ability to port saves across.
Yeah, that's so cool how they do that.
And even though the game ran at 20, 40 FPS on max settings on my PC, I enjoyed it on the Switch.
I know you've talked
more.
about it like 5 times.
So I don't know.
No,
all
I
I'm
get
trying
that.
to-
I'm
all
the
I'm
same
trying
camp
to
as
say
you.
is
I'm the
that
same
I'm
camp
like,
as you.
yeah, it's like, wow, ray tracing's fantastic, and I'm looking forward to see what it looks like for all of 10 minutes, and then I'm probably going to go back to the Switch version.
Wait, you're waiting for the Super Nintendo Switch Pro and then they have to release. Then they have to release
I hope they release
on the Switch Pro only.
I hope
The
they
Witcher
release
3
an update
Wild
to
Hunt
that. Oh, yeah.
Ultimate Complete Edition.
Man, this is driving this is just, man, this game's been out for so long. I have yet not completely finished it.
But you
And
put
there's
hundreds
always
of
like
hours
a
into
new,
it.
I have. Then there's always a new thing that they're releasing, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll wait till that comes out. So I got to start it again from scratch, put in another like 50 hours just to get to the same part.
But that's the same as Skyrim,
And then-
right?
Yeah, pretty much the same as Skyrim. Yeah, it's becoming this Witcher of Skyrim.
So, Mike,
upgrades.
this story isn't for you then. If you don't care about the next gen,
No,
then
no,
I
I
don't
kid.
care.
I kid.
I
I kid.
super care.
He cares.
No, I do.
super
I actually do
about it.
care. I actually do care. I kid around it. I
because
think it'll be.
Because this is another chance to play through what is an absolutely
Yeah.
brilliant game, and
Yeah, I know.
it's just it's going to be it's just going to be great to see it upgraded. And I do hope that they do. So they did improve it throughout the different overhauls they did with the UI and everything, but the game had a massive issue where if you just kept stockpiling inventory, then the inventory UI would just be so slow, like when you were like 100 hours in. So I hope that they have improved that. So
like, I'm also very excited about this, Swinny. I don't know if you remember, but this is actually one of the games in my quote-unquote dirty dozen of games to play this year as part of my new gaming resolutions.
Yeah, how's that going?
Gaming resolutions. So I'll actually wait until this patch comes out, because one thing I don't know, like Mike, ray tracing, I'm a bit like meh. It's a bit like HD rumble and stuff like that. It's doesn't blow my mind.
Yeah, it didn't blow me away inside. Look, maybe it would have been really cool in Cyberpunk if I could run it properly.
No, but what's exciting for me is because Cyberpunk allows for DLSS.
Yes.
So I would assume, given that it's the same engine, they will allow DLSS for Witcher 3
Maybe
with the next gen upgrade. So that would be cool.
Well, you kind of if ray tracing is implemented to the extent that Cyberpunk did, you would need it on a lot of cards.
Yeah. So I hope they have
Because-
that. That'd be really sweet.
Otherwise, yeah, it just wouldn't
well,
run.
it
great.
seems like at least I am excited about what the new features of this version will bring.
I just
the
said I'm
board.
excited.
Feature
I
of
just
the
said.
board. The new feature. You just want ray tracing.
Who cares about ray tracing?
No, I just said I'm happy about DLSS. I'm happy about that. The performance will go through the roof. That'd be mad.
Okay.
Okay. I will be happy to continue playing it.
I like how he has a go at us, and we're both saying we'll play this game this year, this version.
We're just
and then
not
he has a
Just
crack
said
at
he'd
it.
play the
about ray
Switch
tracing, I
version
guess.
again. Like
No, he
didn't
said
say
he
that.
prefers that, but he just said
I
will
would
play
still
this
play
version.
it. Yeah, I'm still. I guess maybe it sounded like I was dissing the idea. I'm not. I actually really want to see how cool it looks on 4K TV with ray tracing on. If my card can even deal with it properly. That's the other thing you got to consider. Cyberpunk. I had to turn ray tracing off on Cyberpunk. It just, even with DLSS,
Oh, really?
ray tracing. Yeah, even with DLSS, with ray tracing on, I just wasn't getting a smooth enough performance that I had to turn it off.
Probably just have to wait for the updates that they're going to post all throughout
Maybe
the
they
year,
will help a bit.
the
Yeah,
next year.
or I just need a 3080 or 37 or whatever, like the next gen that I can't get my hands on.
4080.
But I'm not going to pay like $1,500 minimum to experience proper ray tracing.
I actually checked that out, and I'm like, I don't know how anyone's buying these graphics cards in Australia.
Yeah, in
Like
Australia,
even in the States, it's
nuts.
expensive, but we have a premium extra, not currency related or anything, just the Australian premium of like 30-40%. It's crazy. All right, yeah, we are officially excited, Swinny. Bigwig is excited about this game. This is the one good game they've made so far. I'm just triggering Swinny. He's in a rage. All right, let's get into my favorite segment of the week. The bargain bin for the 4th of April 2021. As always, we start with Epic Games. They are giving away Tales of the Neon Sea this week. For the Switch, we've got BioShock, the collection, for $36, which is damn good value. XCOM 2 collection, $27. And
hang on, XCOM 2 collection apparently doesn't run great. I heard on Switch. I'm
actually glad you told me that, because I was going to pick it up.
Yeah, look it up first.
I'll check it out.
It's also a turn-based game, so it doesn't matter that much.
It shouldn't, but I heard there were some issues with it. So
That's a good call.
double check that before you get it.
Ashen 1890 with PlayStation. So just quick update. So with Ratchet and Clank, so this was the PS4 game, that actually got a 60 FPS update, and they said it was going to be released in April, and then they released it at the end of March. So that's available right now. So if you grab that game as we suggested last month, you could get it for free. And now it's got a 60 FPS patch. And actually, a lot of people are saying the game, it was already a great game, is just elevated by that 60 FPS, which makes sense given the way that the game is structured. With PlayStation Plus, the April games have been announced. We knew some of them, we didn't know others. So Oddworld, Soulstorm, which was already announced to be as part of PlayStation Plus. The one twist to it is this game is coming out on PS4 and PS5, but PS5 version is the only one that they're giving for free. So if you only, which is so rough, if you've only got a PS4 and a lot of people want to buy a PS5 but can't find one, you do not get this game for free. You will have to buy the PS4 version of this game, which feels a little bit rough. Days Gone, which has also had a 60 FPS patch, is free. And Zombie Army 4 Dead War. Xbox, Swinny.
Yeah, so we've got the Games with Gold of April announced. So a couple of decent ones, a couple of crappy ones. So we've got Vikings Wolves of Midgard available from 1st to 30th of April. Truck Racing Championship, which sounds very interesting, from 16th of April to 15th of May. Dark Void, which is a 360 game from the 1st of April to 15th of April. And a game I really recommend, which is Hardcore Uprising, which is available from the 16th to the 30th of April.
I always struggle that it's like only available for 2 weeks, some of these games.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely
It's always been like that.
But Hardcore is really cool. It's Contra, but it's kind of like got a really unique visual style. So
was that no wait, that wasn't the one you got me to try out, but then it turned out it wasn't multiplayer.
No, that was like Blazing Chrome. That was not.
That was
like
Chrome.
Contra. This is an actual Contra game. It's made by Konami.
Okay.
So
Gotcha. Cool.
yeah,
cool. All right, well, let's get into our first special feature. So this week, Mike reviewed the new indie 2D game, Narita Boy. Over to you, Mike.
Yep. I thought you were going to ask me if he succeeded in answering the call.
Did you succeed in answering the call?
I did, and that was going to be the review right there. So, Narita Boy...
read the YouTube intro, the description.
Yeah, dang it, come on, read it properly. So Narita Boy came out, so it was released on the 30th of March, so it just came out, and if you happen to have Game Pass, it's also available for free on Game Pass.
And you did get a review code for it?
I did for the Switch. I think playing it on the Switch is fantastic. I actually did try it when it came out on Xbox Game Pass as well. And it looks nicer on a bigger TV and stuff like that, don't get me wrong, but it's very well suited for the Switch. It fits very docked, nicely
right?
on the Switch.
On the big TV.
You can, of course, yeah. But
yeah, so you can play it on the big TV.
Yeah, you can, yeah, absolutely. But I just, again, I much like when we were discussing The Witcher earlier, I think a game like this just works really, really well on handheld mode.
I was going to say this question later, but it's very...
Ask questions.
It's very related to what you're talking about, which is the text size. So is there any issue with that, or do they scale it up on handheld? Because it looks pretty small on the footage I've seen.
Yeah, it's relatively small, I have to admit. So especially the questing text. So if you press the minus button on the Switch, it brings up the quests. Really, really tiny, hard to read. But it doesn't matter because you don't need to ever read it because quests are completely irrelevant in this game.
Right,
so
it's almost as if
fine.
developers are developing it and playing it on machines that are sitting right in front of them. And desktops that, like, monitors that are right in front of their faces. It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's fine. The game doesn't really... The actual text of when characters talk was more than readable. I had no issues with it. I wear glasses. I mean, maybe without glasses I might have had some issues, but with my glasses on, it was perfectly fine. And it is interesting because it scales. It's not, like a traditional... it's hard to describe, but it's not like a traditional game when it comes to scaling where every piece of text is sort of the same size. It seems to depend on the zoom level as well in the game.
All right. Cool.
But it's always readable. It's always fine. I didn't really...
Thank you for answering that very specific question before you actually introduced the game. I appreciate it.
That's fine. So let me introduce the game now. So Narita Boy is it's self-described as a neo-retro 2D pixel action adventure game. So it originally started its life back in 2017. By the way, I'm not reading off anything. I'm just trying to memorize what I wrote in the review for Fuchs. So it started as a Kickstarter back in 2017 with a super ambitious goal to get it out into the world and into people's hands in December 2018. So as we know, it's now been quite a while later, and that was due to the fact that the studio or the developer, which is Studio Coba, who are based in Spain, underwent a restructure, and of course then COVID hit, and eventually they managed to actually ship it out. And in the meantime, they also moved away from just purely being Kickstarter to actually getting a publisher in the form of Team 17. Who I think are based in the UK from memory. And as a result of the fact that they now got a publisher, they also extended it across multiple platforms. So I can imagine how a game that started life as one thing, then they became a bit ambitious and, managed to get it across multiple platforms, which I think is fantastic, by the way. It just opens it up to a much wider audience. The game itself has really cool. So when I initially saw it, I just instantly loved that 80s aesthetic, that cool retro vibe. There's a few games that have kind of done that in more recent times. Taking that pixelated art and then putting into the sort of that 80s type of environment. But this one actually, Narita Boy does it extremely well, I think. If there was only one thing that I'd say I'd be disappointed at is you don't get to experience a lot of the 80s world that I think initially, and I went through the Kickstarter campaign just to kind of see what it looked like when it got first announced. And I was a little disappointed that you don't get to experience that 80s part of the world as much. And actually, fight in it and really interact with the world. You get to go to it a few times, but it's more of a memory thing. It's not so much the gameplay itself. Do you guys have any questions as I'm talking through this?
No,
Because I know it's supposed to be a review, but I don't want it to be a monologue. I actually want you guys to ask questions like Swinny did at the start.
I have a question. I'll just wait for you to talk about things that relate to that question.
Okay, no worries. I'll keep talking then. So when it comes to the aesthetics, the main things I'll say about it is the background and the animations and the way the characters are and the fluidity. It's fantastic. I love the way they do it.
Oh, you mentioned background. There we go. That relates. That triggered the Swinny.
Ding, 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 the bingo.
Ding, ding, ding. What did I trigger?
Okay.
A bingo.
So I've only watched people play this game. I didn't get a chance. I was just too busy. I did want to try it out.
Yeah, definitely try it out.
Is there any, it looks amazing. It looks
beautiful,
it
looks
awesome.
sick.
But,
it's really cool, yeah.
While it's probably not an issue at all when you're playing, but when I'm watching, it just seemed like there was a lot going on. And it was kind of hard to tell what you could interact with and what you couldn't. Just seemed like there was a lot.
It's fine.
That's fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's fine. When you actually play it, it's fine. Interestingly enough, there's a CRT mode that you can enable. It's in certain parts of the game I noticed that it's fixed. You can't take it off. But in the rest of the game, you can actually disable the CRT effect. And it makes it look like you playing the game on an actual CRT from the 80s. I tried both. I felt like the real experience is meant to have that as a filter, but then it became you have to try to understand what I'm talking about. It just became a little too much. That I kind of enjoyed playing it without the filter, especially on the Switch. But then I started alternating between the two, and I think by the end of the game, I ended up playing with the filter on the entire time. Just because it adds a sort of weird extra effect to the game. So if you do play it with it on, try it off, see which one you like. I think a lot of people would actually probably switch it off, to be honest. And interestingly enough, that's one of the bugs I think I encountered in the game, where in the menu, it says the CRT effect. And if you tick it, it's actually disabled. And if you untick it, it's actually enabled. So it's really weird. I don't know if that's a bug that they'll have to address.
Oh, no, so it literally says CRT effect.
No, it says it's something long. I forget exactly what it says, but it's something.
Are you sure
along
it's
the
not a
line of
double negative? they've
No, it didn't seem like a double negative, or maybe I read
CRT
it.
remover.
Yeah, it should be like a CRT remover, exactly. No. So that part was, but in terms of being able to get what's going on the screen, not a problem at all. So the game actually eases you into the game world quite well, especially the enemies and the way they're introduced. It starts off with basic zombie-like enemies that are fairly easy to take over. And as you progress through it, there's certain enemies that require particular skills to do it. There's at no time is it confusing as to, oh my god, what enemies are there on the screen? What am I supposed to be doing? But there is a bit of a difficulty spike. I found that there was a certain point in the game where you're given a whole bunch of abilities, and it felt like you just get one and you use it a bit, you get one, you use it a bit. And then all of a sudden, like, the difficulty just spiked for me. There's one particular section, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a train involved, and you see when you get to that, where I felt like the difficulty just spiked all of a sudden. And one of the main reasons is because there's this element as part of the game where certain enemies can have different colored flames above their heads. And it plays on the whole trichroma principle, which is that there's like 3 different colors, the red, yellow, and the blue. And you'll see that throughout the game repeated. And one of these things is that these little flames come up above their heads. And if you enable that power, you just use the right stick on the switch. You hold it down and it enables that particular color. You deal more damage to those enemies, but you also take more damage as well from them. So it adds this extra level of complexity to the game that works really, really well. It's just, it felt like it just almost came out of nowhere where you really had to start using it. And to me, that was a massive difficulty spike. It was actually funny because I read an IGN review where the difficulty spike for that reviewer was around a section that is very, very reminiscent of the minecart levels in Donkey Kong that I had played the week before.
Well, I read it's kind of like your Battletoads Turbo Tunnel style thing as well. Like that's what
something
I
like that, yeah. But you know what? I had no issues with that, surprisingly. I died once.
The turbo tunnels?
Not the turbo tunnels. I had never actually played those. I just heard they're notoriously hard. But this particular section, I didn't struggle with it as much, and I think that's only because I had played those stupid Donkey Kong levels like 2 weeks ago, and they drove me nuts, and to like sort of gut the hang of it. And it's exactly the same. It just reminded me of that so much. The one thing I'd say about this is, initially when I first saw it, it was actually from a video that had a whole collection of upcoming Metroidvania games, and I had this expectation, completely false expectation in my head, that it was going to be a Metroidvania kind of game.
Well, people in reviews have said it is a Metroidvania game.
No, I don't think it is at all.
Which I thought was strange. Like, are they just taking that from the Kickstarter?
No. Maybe. Or they haven't played the whole thing properly. I don't know.
They're just misappropriating the term, it sounds like.
Maybe misappropriating the term. Maybe I'm misappropriating the term, but I doubt it.
Not.
All I can say is you can go back to a particular section, but it's like literally within, like, you get an ability and you go back 2 minutes into something, and then that's it. There's backtracking is relatively minimal in that sense. You don't get a map, you don't get a world that you can go back to. Once you sort of go to a world, you just keep progressing forward. There's no going back to previous parts. Either I missed something entirely, which I highly doubt, or the game is actually pretty linear. Now, I know, Swinny, you were talking about this as well, that not every game has to be some sort of...
He criticized you.
I was joking.
Metroidvania thing.
I was joking that if you get, a linear platformer is, it's like that is how most platformers are.
I know
He's publicly backtracking now. He's all brave in our chat.
No, I was just basically saying that it was like Mike was disappointed that there was a linear platformer, whereas that's what platformers generally are.
I have to say, I didn't even think I added to that whole conversation that you guys had. I thought about this whole linear thing like at least 5 times during the week. At random times, like in the shower and stuff. Because I do understand the point that you're saying, Swinny. Just
so linear.
It was a joke. It was an offhand joke, by the way.
No, but there's always truth in jest, right? And I do understand also what you're saying. But it's funny because I don't feel like a lot of the Mario games are linear. They don't feel linear to me, but they are linear. You know what I mean?
Well, they're very linear, yeah.
But I would never say they're linear. But I do
Hmm.
understand your use of the word linear.
Well, you go from the starter level to the end level and you progress to the next level, you know.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. But I thought of it in my head, and again, this is just misconceptions. But I actually don't think it's just me having thought that because of my misconceptions about what the game should be. Even there's elements in the game where it really feels like that's what they may have been going for. So, as an example, there's an ability that you get where you can smash a specific section of the ground to continue, and you get to the certain part where it's like, oh, there's this blue thing on the ground, and you can't get through it. And then you go a little bit, you get this ability, and then you can come back and you can go through that section. But again, it's like they give you this ability that you can use once or twice within specific sections like that. But you can never go back to a previous area to unlock something cool or a whole different thing. You know, it's nothing like that. It's like they almost become so superfluous as abilities. And it's the same thing. You get this ability to bash through a wall, like a vertical wall, which is basically the equivalent is the ability to smash down through the ground. But it's never, other than like putting it in a few parts just as a pointless barrier to for no reason, it's not really used. Like it feels like it's the kind of thing where they may have thought about using it so you can unlock certain areas that you can only kind of come back to later, but it was never implemented like that. And having looked at the Kickstarter and the original videos that I saw, there's so many things in it where I'm like, wow, that's not in the game. I watched the initial videos, and there's just bit after bit after bit that I did not see in the final game. Now, that's not to say the final game is not good. It's great. I love playing it. The music's fantastic. The combat's really cool. It's solid. It gets a little bit samey after a while, I have to admit, once you get the hang of it. But it's still it's very solid, very cool, really fun to play. Overall, highly recommend it. If you can get it on the Switch, I'm not entirely sure how much it is at the moment because I have the code. So if you guys can check for me, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll check now.
But if you have Game Pass, an absolute must play. It's a
So
relatively
you think
short
we should
game as
play
well.
it?
Oh, totally. You guys absolutely should play it. I highly recommend it. Especially if you have Game Pass, it's a no-brainer for me. It's a fantastic game. It's short, but it's a really cool short experience in my opinion. That is absolutely worth giving a crack.
It's 3750.
3750.
It's
Look,
actually 4.5 Metacritic for user score.
yeah. Oh wait, out of 10.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm actually kind of not surprised by that. I think it's maybe a lot of people that had high expectations from Kickstarter. I did say, and I think I did sort of point out in the long length review, and I was talking to you guys about it before I even said that I think there's going to be two camps of people: the people that have never really seen this or vaguely followed it, that don't have any preconceptions of what the game should have been,
Yeah.
or may have been based on what they were sold in Kickstarter. And then I think there's the group of people who backed it on day one, who waited so long for it to be released. You know, like it's now what two and a bit years since the initial release date, and I don't feel it's what they paid for, if that makes sense. Now I can't comment about that exactly because I didn't back the Kickstarter up, but I can imagine how they would be frustrated by how it turned out.
It's quite an interesting game because like it's getting like really mixed reviews. Like really good reviews. Like people are like, oh, absolutely recommend playing this game. And then IGN's giving it like a 6 out of 10.
And look, the IGN, I read through the IGN one, and it's weird. I gave it an 8 out of 10, and I'm sticking to that. But I can see how different people would totally rate it differently. They'll get something else out of the game. I loved it. I enjoyed it, and there's so many cool bits about it. And I think in the end, it's 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, whatever, 10 out of 10. So much effort clearly went into making this game by a team of what grew to 7 people from what I saw, that I still think it's an amazing indie achievement. It's a really cool game made by just a small team of people. You can tell they spent a ton of time and effort building it. It may not, hit the mark for a bunch of people, but if you can get your hands on it again, especially on Game Pass, it's free. Give it a crack. I think it's fantastic.
And look, I think with the Metacritic user reviews, there's probably people on Kickstarter that might have been annoyed with the game or something like that.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I reckon it's a whole bunch of people like that.
Are you going to play it, Swinny?
I'd like to. There's so many. As I said last week, there's just too many games and not enough time.
It's really short.
But you know, that's
relatively
probably
speaking.
the weird thing for me mentally with Game Pass. I feel like, well, I don't need to play it because it's free, so I'll play it later, but then I'll never play it. It's kind of a weird thing about not
Give it a
purchasing a game.
crack.
You know what I mean?
Give it a crack.
I might fire it up and play
very
it for a
short.
little bit after I play LA Noire and all those other games I need
Yeah.
to play. And then Monster Hunter Rise. Once I get through that, once I complete everything in Monster Hunter Rise, I'll play it.
See you next year.
See you next Tuesday. All right. Let's get into our final feature. Thanks for that, Mike. So our final feature for today is the Super Mario 3D Land Fresh Perspective. So this is as part of our Game of Summer of the Year 2011. So it's one of the nominees, one of the 6 nominees. The other nominees are Minecraft, LA Noire, Deus Ex, Human Revolution, Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, and Dark Souls. So this game came out in 2011. So at the end of 2011, whereas the actual 3DS came out at March or early 2011, and really probably provided the answer to the question of what was the point of the 3DS with its innovative use of 3D, including 3D in a lot of its puzzles. So, Mike, you're relatively new to this game, right?
Absolutely. Pretty much, yeah, totally new to it.
And Swinny as well, right? Yeah, did you've just recently played this as well?
Yeah, recently the only previous experience with it was just a couple of times at random demo kiosks. So this was
Yeah.
the first time I actually got my hands on it properly.
Yeah.
Awesome. I didn't know that.
So I actually played this game like ages and ages ago. I can't even remember, like 4, 5, 6 years ago. And I love this game and love this game so much. I feel like this is the only handheld Mario game that deserves to be considered in the lineage of Super Mario games. Now, what I mean by that is Super Mario 3, Super Mario World, etc., and then this game, Odyssey, etc. How does that stack up for you, Swinny?
You're not counting Wario Land, are you?
Well, there's a couple of things. So that was developed by a different part of Nintendo, and the only other game that I would ever say should have an argument to be considered as like a mainline Mario game probably would be Super Mario Land 2. But I just still think that game's super odd and super out there. And it's, to me, just personally doesn't... It's kind of almost in the same camp as Super Mario 2. Like, it doesn't kind of feel like a Mario game.
Well, yeah, the reason I asked about Wario Land is because it's like the whole Yoshi's Island situation where its tagline is Super Mario Land 3 Wario Land.
Well, I don't consider Super Mario Land as part of the Super Mario mainline.
Okay, that's fair enough.
thread.
Yeah. This look. I agree. I mean, what else is there? You've got the new Super Mario Brothers games, but what other games? You know, other than the Mario Advance things they put on the Game Boy Advance.
Well, they're not new.
No, but I'm saying what else is there?
Well, Land 2, technically Wario Land, but that doesn't count. 64 DS, but that's a remake. And yeah, like you said, the new Super Mario Bros.
Well, by default, this is the best of them all, in my opinion. And I do like Mario Land 2.
Land 2 is great. Like, I don't know if you played that, Mike. That is one of the best Game Boy games. But we'll talk about that in another video.
Yeah.
So what stood out about this game? And we should also say, like, I played this game. This is one of the few 3DS games I pretty much played all the way through in 3D. Same as you, and then not for you, right, Swinny?
Yeah, so I played this game in 2D, and I'll get to how that impacted my experience. Okay. Well, I wouldn't say there's any good to it, but in the negative ways, I guess. So.
Yeah.
So I went out and borrowed a 3DS to play it, and then I actually went out and got my own 3DS because I loved it so much. So
Oh, I didn't realize you bought a 3DS.
I ended up buying one. Yeah, so I borrowed my
Did you know this,
girlfriend's
Swinny?
sister's 3DS.
I think you
I
mentioned
thought I did
it.
tell
Yeah,
you
he
guys. Yeah,
mentioned
I
it,
did
yeah.
mention that I ended up finding my
literally bought so many consoles this year. I've lost track.
It's ridiculous. I know.
Switch, 3DS,
yeah.
PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X.
So I
Is
had
that
a
it?
3D...
Is that the list? That's 4.
Maybe. Yeah.
One
I hope
X
that's it.
technically with Cyberpunk, or was that last year?
No,
It was last year.
that
Right?
was last year. Yeah.
Lucky.
So I enjoyed it so much that I just had to go and get my own 3DS just to be able to keep playing it properly and not have to worry about returning a console or something. Because I got my own copy of the game, and it was also quite interesting playing it on the XL versus the normal 3DS, and I tried it both 2D and 3D. 3D is definitely the way this game is meant to be experienced.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's designed so well for 3D. What I found really interesting is that when I had a 3DS way back, pretty much when they originally came out, I used to turn the 3D off. I don't know why. I think it just I wasn't really into it. Whereas now, for some weird, bizarre reason, I'm into it. I love it. Like I'm sitting there thinking, nah, I'm not turning it off. Screw that. When my girlfriend took it, she didn't really like the 3D FX, so she switched it off. And I'm like, oh, you're just missing on such a critical part of the experience. You got to play it with 3D on. So I ended up turning the 3D on for the entire thing. Now I have to admit, I made it up to World 8 at the very, very end. And I know, and I guess we'll talk about it, but I know that there's all these special worlds that you can also do.
Yeah, so you played about half the game.
So I played technically about half the game, right? It's crazy that there's so much content in the game as well in that sense. Because I felt like I played it for quite a bit. I felt like I really got my money's worth, if that makes sense, out of the game. Yeah. Just getting up to that point, I'm like, wow, there's so many cool little bits about it. There's so many different interesting levels to experience. And things to enjoy, and then I realized, oh wait, there's like something like halfway through the game. Holy moly, how much content does this game have?
Yeah, and like from a completion perspective, it's actually insanely long, this game. Mm-hmm. Like even for Mario games, it's actually right up there with some of the longest Mario games out there.
It's good value though.
Yeah, insane value. And going back to your original kind of question around the handheld stuff, this is the only handheld game that was made, like new game, from the EAD team that, you know, does the mainline Mario series. So and it very much shows, and it was so good that they ended up making a Wii U version of this game that is also now available on the Switch, which is 3D World plus Bowser's Fury.
But that's different, right? 3D Worlds.
No, I'm just saying it's like in that kind of like series of games.
Yeah.
I almost consider this as a different tranche of the 3D Mario games.
It's totally different. I was actually going to ask you guys the same. So you have way more experience than I do with this, but having just played Odyssey and then having gone back to playing something like 3D Land, I actually enjoy 3D Land more than I did Odyssey. I don't know.
Really? You like Odyssey
I don't
as
know
well?
if it's... I like both, but something about the way the world was in a more, I don't know how to even talk about it. Not linear in the sense that, you know, when I was talking about Narita Boy, the world being linear, but something about the way that the world worked, and then the way they introduced certain elements where, you know, there were parts where you had to keep going forward into the land. I actually enjoyed the experience more than I did Odyssey. So I don't know, like, how do you guys feel about that? Because you guys played the likes of Odyssey and Galaxy and all that stuff way more. How do you compare the two? Because they are distinctively different kind of games, I find.
Swinny?
Oh, look, yeah, I've watched a recent video that was actually really good exactly about this topic, which is essentially we've got almost like 3 branches of Mario design at this point. You know, you've got,
which Nintendo also called out as well.
So, you know, you've got your traditional, you know, linear 2D style platforming. You've got your 3D exploration sandbox style Mario games like your Odyssey, and then you've got this that sits kind of almost in the middle of it. And it's really good to have, you know, like to be able to take your franchise character, your big character, and be able to take them down these different paths. I think it's really, really cool.
I mean, this may not make any sense what I'm about to say, but you know what a 2D platformer is. If I say, here's a 2D platformer, and if I go, here's a 3D sandbox platformer,
Hmm.
it genuinely is like a 2D 3D a 2D 3D platformer. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Or a 2D platformer in 3D world or something. It is super linear. It's a very loaded term, but within that world of it being linear, it feels very freeing. And I think it's also because it's almost like each level has its own gimmick in this game.
Yes.
And I kind of love how they just go, here's a gimmick, and all the levels are very short, which I also love as well. It's just like, here's a gimmick, like play around with it, and then you'll never see it again. Or maybe like until the boss, or like right at the end of the whole game. Like this game, I actually like absolutely genuinely love this game. And obviously for me, because I love Odyssey, like Odyssey was almost like it just touches on nostalgia in the most perfect way around how it deals with like Mario 64 and all these other things. And I don't want to spoil it, but you know, like that's a level that it kind of, it's impossible for it to reach, but it does come close. 3D Land. I really love 3D Land. I love how it riffs off, you know, Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario 3, Super Mario World within the first like 4 levels. It's just like amazing, and like aesthetically the way it's presented, it's perfect on the console. And you know, it was also very critical for 3DS. Like Nintendo was coming off a huge success with the DS and the Wii, and then they kind of had a rough launch of the 3DS. They chopped the price of it within a year. When it launched, it kind of didn't have really, you know, standout system sellers. And a lot of people questioning what's the point of the 3D. And like this game really did answer that. And maybe we'll just touch on the 3D components shortly, because pretty much to me, they always come to life with the 3D puzzles. And I almost don't even know how people do them, apart from just, I guess you just do it from just guessing. Like Swinny, you can talk to it. Like how do you do it in 2D, some of those 3D puzzles?
You just have to guess. You just have to like jump around. Oh, that block is in front of the Mario goes behind that block. It is not. Look, there are some that allows you can swap the perspective. There's like a button on the ground, but some of them you can't.
I didn't know that.
Well, some of them you can't. So thankfully, a lot of that stuff is optional content. So that if you have trouble with that, then then you can skip it. But look, this game, the whole 3D thing. So this game is is fantastic. I've got a lot of thoughts both for and against what I just said, but the main thing with the 2D and 3D, there are some levels where you struggle with perspective if you're not playing in 3D. Like it's clear that to be able to jump across these platforms, you need to have depth perception that you don't have. And so there's a lot of times where later on in the game also where I just couldn't figure out the right angle to jump across to a platform, whereas it was obvious that it would be clear when you view it in 3D because you see the depth. And I think one of the tricky parts, and I don't know, I guess you could talk to if it's better or not, probably the trickiest part I had was trying to aim like fireballs, and trying to figure out the right angle, how to hit enemies. Specifically, underwater was probably the worst. When I had the Firefly underwater, trying to figure out the right angle, because I couldn't tell exactly where the enemy was in the level, because unlike on land, you can see shadows and you can have a better ground.
You have to see shadows.
Whereas when it's in water, they're kind of the cheap or whatever, they're floating, and it's like, oh, where are they exactly? So that was quite difficult in 2D at times.
It's interesting you say that, because I then subsequently went and played 3D Mario World, where it's obviously not 3D, and
well, the game's 3D, but it's not.
Well,
3D
the game's 3D, but
visual effect.
Obviously, visual effect is in 3D. And I was struggling with a bunch of stuff where I'm like, I swear to God, I was struggling with this stuff in land.
Oh, I say I struggled in both.
I struggled in judge. Both. I couldn't do. I definitely don't feel like I struggled as much in land, and I think that's because of the 3D effect.
Yeah, and I think this is actually one of the only 3D games that I can think of, because it's using the 3D visual sort of, feature of the 3DS. And I should say, I didn't play this when it launched. So I played it like 4 or 5 years ago on the new 3DS. So the small model that was released in Australia, quite common in Australia, but surprisingly found out later, very rare in America. So they really only had the new Nintendo 3DS. They only released the new Nintendo 3DS, the smaller version, as like special colors as like an optional thing. Like it was way later as well, which kind of sucks because
The XL you're talking about?
no,
or-
the new Nintendo 3DS.
Okay.
The new Nintendo 3DS XL was it was everywhere.
Okay, gotcha.
But the new Nintendo 3DS wasn't really common in America, which is the one that I like and I have. Because you could replace the shells. So I've got like a Mario Maker shell that looks really, really sick. It's got like all Nintendo franchise characters in like an 8-bit style. Looks really, really cool.
Okay.
But yeah, I think this is like one of the only 3D games that I can think of where I've had almost zero issues with 3D itself. Like,
Yeah, same.
even like now, like I'll play Odyssey and I've played these games heaps. Every now and then I'm like, I misjudged something a little bit. I'm like, I feel like I just didn't get the perspective right. This game with the 3D on, I feel like every single time, like the depth and the way that they had the camera and everything, it was like perfect. It was actually like, it made the game so much. Like, and that's why it almost like, I haven't beaten 3D World, but I would struggle to put 3D World ahead of this game. I feel like just the whole
I wouldn't.
package.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
whole package just felt so much better in 3D.
Yeah, like I just can't fault it. And going back to the special worlds, I actually want to go back to this game because I didn't get through all
Same.
the special worlds, and it's just such a fun game. And it's one of those games where you can really get through and collect everything. So
Well, I think that's a testament to the game. I felt myself playing it not because I had to talk about it or review it or something like that. Just because I really wanted to play it. And I'm actually now genuinely looking forward to continuing the game. Obviously, I had to play other things in the meantime since, but I look forward to playing more and more of it. And I'm glad I actually got my own 3DS. Maybe I'm just secretly trying to justify my purchase. I don't know, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
And did you run into any other problems, Swinny, just around the 2D kind of aspect?
No, not the 2D, 3D aspect. I've got plenty of other problems with this game, though.
Well, go on. Go on.
Oh no, here we
No,
go.
so
Go
I
on.
want to focus on the positive first. But yeah, no other issues with the 2D, 3D. It was just, as I said, mainly like those random situations where I'd miss a platform or something like that. So,
Well, I'm interested to hear what the other things that you wanted to call out.
well, I want to just talk a little bit about what I do love about it then. Before
Oh,
I
yeah,
get
go on,
there.
go on. Yeah.
So, this game is gorgeous. Even, in the horrible way I had to play it, it's still, I can imagine on a 3DS, it's just looking absolutely fantastic. And the level design, like a lot of that is just, it's truly special. I look at this game and it just kind of makes me sadder about the new Super Mario Brothers games. It just feels like where one went so wrong, in my opinion, this just went so right in so many ways.
But by the way, like I don't want to go way off topic. I don't think they're terrible. I think people bash the new Super Mario Brothers series a lot. The thing around they're not too original is like probably the biggest thing.
But for me, like I play those games and they just don't feel like they've got the soul of Mario, whereas this feels like
I agree with
Mario.
that. I agree with
This is like almost like peak Mario in a lot of ways. Like some of the enemy designs, some of them, they're whether or not they're lifted from the other games, or they're, kind of new things introduced. It's so cool. As you said before, Mario 3, this game reminds me so much of Mario 3, more so than probably any other Mario game. And that's helped by the fact that there's a lot of elements and music from Mario 3, but even just something about the worlds just feels very Mario 3. And
Can I just before you go on, because just like you picked something with me, just how you said it's peak Mario. I kind of get what you're saying, and I've never really thought about that with this game, but I almost feel like this game is more Mario in the vein of like the Mario I grew up with, which is like Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 3, which is my favorite Mario of all time. I feel like this is almost more Mario than even Mario World, which is kind of a crazy thing that I've never thought of.
yeah, and a part of that I think is the way that the levels are nice and compact, and
Yes.
you jump on the flagpole at the end. Like this feels like I could see jumping straight from Mario World to this and being like a natural progression, like Mario 64 is obviously great and everything, but this feels like a natural progression from those classic ones.
Yeah, more than Mario 64.
Yeah.
That's kind of, yeah. And yeah, like the levels are uncomplicated but not simple.
Yeah, and I love how they're not afraid of letting the player experiment. So if you're creative with the moveset and, the items that are available, you can skip whole sections and they're just kind of cool with it, and this isn't new to the Mario games, but it feels like you can get really creative with how you get past the obstacles in this game, which I think is fantastic. And just stuff like my favorite gameplay element, and I think they were introduced in Odyssey 2, but it was the red and blue panels.
Oh, they're so cool.
Yeah.
Where you jump and then they'll flip between them. And
they're massive in 3D World as well.
Yeah, and
Yep.
it makes me like it whenever you have to kind of re-engineer how you're playing as Mario for a split second, I just love it. I think it's such a cool addition, and I know it's not new, like as I said, Odyssey 2 had it, but this is the first time I've experienced it because I've yet to play 3D World. So
That's really good.
No, but this was, I think, in the
remember
Mario
them.
is the first time they used it.
Odyssey 2 had them apparently. So
Odyssey 2. What do you mean Odyssey?
sorry,
2?
I always say that. I mean Galaxy 2. I always say that.
Galaxy 2.
I always say
you're
that.
right. Yeah,
Galaxy
yeah,
2.
they did. Yeah.
They have changed them in World a bit, in the sense that they've got the timing is in the music plays. It's like do, and you got to jump, but preempt the color, and it's all timed. You don't actually do it based on when you press the jump button.
Yeah.
It's all timed within the game, which is it's a whole different element. It's so cool.
So I want to hear Swinny knock the game. Go on.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, there's some small stuff, but there's a specific design choice that I absolutely despise with this game that not everyone's going to experience. So, like, first of all, like some small things, because we've talked about what we love about the game. I think it's right that we even mentioned a couple of small things. I'm not a big fan of the boomerang suit. Other than its use for bosses.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Like,
either.
I will generally try to avoid it unless it's going to be obviously needed for a specific thing. Also, when you're going through the levels and trying to get some of the extra optional collectibles and things, there are times when you need a specific power up. And if you don't have it on you, it's not always like readily accessible unless it's hidden in a block somewhere that I haven't found. And it's like, okay, does that mean that I have to come into this level with that specific power? And that I'm not a big fan of that choice, but it's I guess again a pretty small thing. And I think this might get better when you do like the Luigi run or whatever. But I don't think there's enough variety in the bosses when you essentially between Boom Boom and was it Pom? What's her name? The female Boom Boom? It's like Pom Pom or something like that. Anyway, I think that could have been a bit more interesting.
Yeah, Pom Pom and Boom Boom.
But I do love the I guess you could kind of call them bosses, the Bowser sections where you got to run past him. I think they're pretty cool. But the biggest problems for me, one of them is might be because of my specific situation, which is the controls. I'm not a fan of the controls in this game. They're very different to your other 3D games, which I understand. But it just doesn't feel, to me, it feels like Mario almost completely stops as soon as you let go of the controller. I'm used to him having a bit more momentum. And the problem for me is that the controls almost feel like an N64 era platform to me. And I
got to stop you, right? Because like, we should call out though that.
Well, I'm going to explain. I'm going to explain the control situation.
I think you got to give the context first.
Predicament.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about it because honestly, I think it will probably be the same experience on 3DS, but I'll get to it. Basically, I think this game needed that style of control, but I didn't like it. It's one of the and it only really started to show itself later on in the game when I felt like I needed to be a lot more accurate with the things I was doing. I felt that there's times when I just didn't have as much control over Mario in the air once he jumped as I'm used to. So I think that that's part of it kind of soured the experience a little bit for me. But the issue I have is essentially I attempted to get this game, got screwed over by the mail, and I essentially had to play this via dodgy means. So that very much could impact the actual controller responsiveness. But I think about if I was playing this on my 2DS, I'm not a big fan of the analog nub or whatever you call it on that. So I don't know if I'd have much better experience because I'm using that nub anyway. So that's the criticism that may be specific to my situation. But I've heard that, the controls are quite different in general to, let's say, your Mario 64s and things. And I feel that that's how I prefer Mario to control in a 3D space, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, like the reason why I was like objecting is it's kind of reminds me of when people criticize like, oh, Punch Out. They're playing it on a HD TV through an emulator or something like that, and they're like, oh, this game sucks. It's impossible. Blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, you're meant to play it on a CRT. It literally has like 3-frame input that you need to do, and with the HD TV with delays and stuff, you literally can't do it. You have to guess, right? Like, controls are very much about feel, right? And they built the game around the crappy analog control that the 3DS has, which sucks, right? Like the 3DS's, analog stick is horrible. But part of it is like, how the 3DS controller moves, Swinny, and, really snaps back quite aggressively and stuff like that. It's kind of the reason why Mario moves like he does in this game. And I not once had an issue with the controls. Like, it felt tight. Like, pretty much, I don't think there's been a Mario game, like a mainline Mario game that I've played that I haven't felt like the controls are tight for what they are in that era that they came out. Mike, like, did you feel you had any issues with the control?
No, I don't recall having any real issues with it.
I think it's the setup.
It might be the setup.
I think I'm just not a fan of that style of what they've done with the controls.
But I don't think you can really judge that. I think it's like judging something that you literally haven't played it with the controls that it was designed for.
There's parts of it, yes, that I agree that there could be the case, but honestly, I just prefer the way Mario controls in other 3D titles. It's just not my cup of tea. Yeah.
I do want you to play it. Like, when I see you next, I'll give you my 3DS.
But that's the lesser of that's the lesser of
now.
the two. Like, I have a major gripe with design of this
okay,
game.
go on. Well, the first one doesn't count, but yeah, go on. What's the one gripe you have?
Real quick, sorry, on the first one.
Completely negate my point, why don't you? Thank you.
No, but like, honestly, I think you need to actually try it.
Mario is not above criticism. I'm sorry. And if I feel that's the case...
I think you know that I like to criticize things. I'm more than happy to criticize things. I got no issue with that.
Sorry,
but
Mike.
What's the second gripe? What's the second gripe?
No, I was going to quickly say, interestingly enough, I found the momentum and world sometimes a little too much, where I would feel like I would lose control of the character because it wasn't snappy enough. Like almost the opposite problem that I think you were almost feeling, where I was overshooting things because I misjudged the amount of momentum that the character had, or judged the amount of momentum the character had, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played World, so I can't judge that one. But
yeah, you'll see. It'll be. I'd love to talk about it when we all play it properly.
No, the main issue I have with the design is that the fact that they put gates in progress in this game.
You need a certain number of stars to.
Okay.
Oh, okay, weird. Okay, that's
so
really weird.
The major issue I have with this, and this is not going to be an issue for most people, right? When I'm playing a Mario platformer, a linear platformer, this is basically a linear Mario platformer.
Mm-hmm.
There's been no Mario game that is gated off progress for optional things that you have to collect. Now, if you look at a game like your Mario 64, your Mario Odyssey, even games that are similar that have, gates for progress, like your Banjo-Kazooies and things, they're all part of what you are told and the main objective of what you're doing in that level. Okay, collect the shine, collect the star, collect the moon or whatever, right? That is what you need to progress. I was essentially, I wanted to experience what I could, most of this game that I could, when we went to chat about this. So I was playing through and I decided, look, I'm going to, kind of like the Donkey Kong situation, I'm going to just, try to get through this game.
I feel like every game that you're trying to speedrun, you end up hating.
But these are
like, fuck these controls.
but these
fuck the gating.
No, but these are platformers that, like, and that's an optional thing. No, I want to finish this point because it's very important to me. This almost stopped me from playing the game.
Damn.
When I got to the point that had the first gate that at least I noticed, and it said, okay, you need 50 of these star coins, which are optional things that, or at least you think they're optional, right? Well, obviously, once I found that out, I realized they weren't optional, or at least the majority of them. And then suddenly I had like 30 out of the 50 because I just decided to stop collecting them because I'm like, whatever, I just want to play through these levels and experience the design of these levels. And then I had to essentially go and play through the majority of the game again to collect these. Now,
That's a fair point.
The reason why most people aren't going to have this issue is because most people are going to collect them. Right? And I completely understand that. But what shocked me was that this almost seems completely anti-Mario to design it this way. And what I realized is so I played all the way up until the end of World 8, or at least what I thought it was, and then it continues a little bit. And then I hit the 91, and I literally had 90 on me. I had 90 on me because from that point onwards, I was collecting them.
Yeah,
but I'm like, man, like, I don't understand the reason for putting that. Why did they put those progression gates in? I mean, there's things you can unlock, like bonus levels and stuff along the way if you've got the amount. I understand that. But to stop your progression through the main game from these optional collectibles just seems anti-Mario.
I agree with that. I think I totally agree. I feel like in general, it is anti-Mario. It's not in the style of Mario. The only thing that I could think of why they're doing it is because they want you to explore the levels more.
Yeah.
And they want to, create not even an incentive or demand. It's funny you say that because every time I hit those things, they're like, you need 30 coins or stars. I can't even remember what it was, right? What is it? Stars or coins?
They're like star coins or something.
Yeah, star coins, right? You need 30 star coins. I'm like, oh yeah, here's 50. Like I had so many, like it was nothing.
Yeah.
But I do understand your point. And in general, I hate that in games. Like when it is like a game that's progressing through levels, I never really understand the point of it. Like I get that they're saying I should collect more, but like kind of why are you arbitrarily making it almost like a university course where I need to have this module and then that module, and it's almost like you get up to the final year and they said, well, actually you needed to get 80% in those exams in year one. So go back to year one and do those exams and then come back later.
And don't get me wrong, I think this is an absolutely brilliant game. That's why I wanted to cover some of those positives first to make sure people know that I do think this is a great game. But unless I missed something at the start, because I played like the first two worlds quite a few months ago and then came back to it. So unless I missed that, to me, all it would have been is almost like something right at the beginning in the first couple stages where it kind of had like a check to make sure that you knew that it was kind of important to pick them up, And I think then it would have been like, okay, then whatever. But it just, it seemed a strange decision, a really strange decision. So but look, they're fun to collect. Like I love the secrets and everything, and the way they put so much into these worlds, and they're not very big worlds, but they put so many cool details into it. The collecting them is fun. I just wish I would have known that they weren't optional. So
normally like these kind of games, the way you design around it, if you want to make it like this, and I wouldn't make a game like this, like where you have these hard points that you can't get through unless you collect. And I believe they did in 3D World as well, Mike, from memory.
They do.
They do. Yeah, it's the exact same thing.
You need a certain number of stars to unlock.
I get up to those bits and I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I've got like 50 more than
I
it's
usually
asking
have
for.
enough.
Yeah. Because I love those games and I pretty much collect almost everything just generally. But normally what you do in these kind of games is you show it almost at the start. Like you need to get 90 to be able to get through this final bit. And then you're kicked right back to the start of the game or something. So in the back of your mind, you're like, shit, I need to get 90 of these at some stage.
I think my girlfriend will agree with you as well, Swinny, because she got stuck in a bunch of places when she was playing World.
Really?
With the same thing, because she was rushing through certain bits. I didn't bother taking stuff, so she had to go back and find more stars, and then she'll hand me the Switch and go, can you please get some stars for me? So I can see other people would probably agree with you. But again, I had the same experience as integot, where I always had way more than enough stars in both games, both Land and World as well, where then never even occurred to me, to be honest. It was always like, oh yeah, just continue, because I always had
And
enough.
part of this is, look, we are wanting to play through. I play a lot of games, right? Of course. And there's times when I potentially plan things out. So okay, I set aside like 5 or 6 hours today to just play through as much as I could of the game. And I kind of wanted the whole point of me, so we can discuss it, is seeing as much of the game as I can so we can talk to it. And that is not the best way to play a game like this. I completely, and that's not the way I normally play a game. It's just kind of the way that, and it's similar with Donkey Kong Country Returns, although that one I had, I had other pressures that didn't mean I could play it. But it's like, so I want to reiterate that, look, most people aren't going to come across that issue or that weird design choice. I just couldn't understand it, but I love the game otherwise.
Yeah, that is a completely unnecessary design choice. But I think most regular playthroughs, you'd be collecting enough to get to 90. I can't remember how many there is total. It's way more than 90 though, from memory. It's like 150-ish or something like that.
I don't remember, but yeah, it's quite a few. And again, if it just so you know now, from when you play World, same problem.
Well noted.
Collect them as you go.
I have to say though, Swinny, in World, I feel like it's way more obvious early that you need to be collecting these things. I think early on, even the first castle.
All the castles needed, yeah.
No, but I'm saying in the first castle and the first world, it's like you have to collect quite a lot to open that up from the start. So you have to at least play the optional levels. But that's another thing, Swinny. The optional levels give you a ton of stars.
You know what might have happened? Like, maybe I'll start a new game to check it. When I first started playing the game, I was a lot more slow in exploring. And maybe there was an early check that I just didn't notice. It's possible. It's possible that the way I split my play periods up of that game kind of screwed me with that, but whatever.
Yeah. And honestly, like, given that I'm saying that I think that this would be in the Super Mario series, the same that has like, Super Mario World, Super Mario 3, I would actually find this really hard to put in a tier list. Like, I'm not really sure where I'd rank this in all the Mario games, but it'd be up there. I feel like I'd put this above Super Mario Brothers 1.
Maybe. I mean, a lot of Super Mario Brothers 1 is also nostalgia, It's kind of...
it's a good game.
It's a good game, but, if someone's coming to it now, or new, to compare that to a 3D land, you're going to have a tough time,
Sure. But I'll probably put it above Sunshine. I don't know. I don't want to do this tier list now. But... Well, does anyone else have anything else to say about this game?
No, other than for me personally, who wasn't hugely into Mario. Again, I played the classics and stuff like that, but I missed out on a few of the more recent titles. I loved it to bits, and I played it after I clocked Odyssey, and I actually enjoyed it more than I enjoyed Odyssey. So to me, I think it's a testament that it's a really cool, fun experience. I was playing it till my hands were cramping on the Switch, on the 3DS, like really seriously cramping, and I still wanted to keep playing it.
That would be cool if they released it on the Switch. I know that the whole meme of release everything on the Switch.
Yeah, I know. And the 3D-ness and the lack of 3D would be really
That's
interesting.
What I was thinking.
Like what happened to Swinny, but
yeah, is like, do you lose a lot with that game unless you change it up a bit.
Yeah.
So.
But hey, it works. It works without it. It's just it's not the same experience, but it's still totally playable experience.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right. I think that wraps us up for this week. Next week, I've done this unilaterally, but we'll be covering our first video game memories. So you guys have to jog your memories to think about what your first gaming memories were.
I don't have to go very far.
I've been thinking about this for a long time.
Let's just say the video game memories.
I know exactly what game you're talking about, Mike.
I know as well.
I'm looking forward to you mentioning
It's also got
this.
3D in the title. Yes. All right. So if you want to reach out to us at Bigwig Pod on Twitter, or hit us up on Gmail, bigwigpod@gmail.com, or through the YouTube chat and comments. I always enjoy people's comments on Swinny's Assassin's Creed tier list.
Shut up with that bloody tier list.
It's awesome. It's our most popular video. It's awesome. And also give us a 5-star review on your podcast service of choice. That will help us grow. With that, bye-bye.
See ya.
Ciao, bye.